Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joe Moran and I'm here with River Brown, Joe Dehls, John Tortorelli, and this is now episode 269. And today we have a special guest, Travis May. We are joined by him to talk about the top running back and tight end prospects in the NFL draft. And then later on, we'll talk about DeAndre Hopkins, expectations for Jordan Love, Bill Belichick potentially shopping Mac Jones, and reviewing NFL win line totals. So, Travis, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. I'm glad to just join you and talk NFL prospects. That's what I've been doing nonstop this season. I feel like I got like 10 shows in the next like 8 days or something. I'm doing just talking Mojo, NFL draft, everything. So it's that time of year, man. So glad to be here.
Yeah, and as you guys all know, we are partnered with Mojo, and Mojo, they have their own listings of the top receivers, running backs, and tight ends. Their top 5 receivers were JSN, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, number 4 is Zay Flowers, and number 5 was Jalen Hyatt. So, Travis, just want to get your quick thoughts on that top 5. Do you think that Jordan Addison is too high at 2? Because I think he is a little bit too high.
I think if you are an analytics fan, then no. The answer is no. He's not too low because his production profile from day one, when he showed up at Pitt as a true freshman, he was dominant. I think his first few games in a row, he had 7 catches, and just was, hey, by the way, I'm the best player on the team. And year 2 had that massive breakout with the Bletnikoff Award-winning season. Transfers to USC, plugs in as immediately productive despite being not 100%. So he profiles really well. People were, worried about him running a 4.49, which, by the way, that's dumb. Like the average for NFL wide receivers at the combine is 4.52. So there's nothing wrong with the speed. So I think the weight is a concern, but no, he analytically projects to be a success. You could put a couple other guys over him, but I think it'd be bad to drop him down very far the list. Yeah.
So I was checking your Twitter profile, and Marvin Mims has the second best analytics profile for a receiver. Did he crack your top 5 list, or is he not on the top 5?
My own personal top 5?
Yeah, your own personal top 5.
My own personal top 5, he's really, really close. He's 6 for me overall. But and he's somebody that I've really liked since, I don't know, high school. I'm one of those nerds that follows college football recruiting. So I know all the top 4 or 5-star kids that, by the time they're a junior. And so he's one of those guys that's okay, he's going to be a top 100 player in the country. We knew it. He, as a true freshman, had a smash success in his sophomore year. The whole offense struggled. Everyone but him struggled, basically. Every other wide receiver is 10 yards per catch, 11 yards per catch. And then Marvin Mims, 20 plus yards per catch. He's an efficiency monster, even when the offense struggled, and then has his best year this past season after losing his quarterback. Man, yeah, I love Marvin Mims.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Marvin Mims too. And how you guys doing, Dehls, Tortorelli, and Riv?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. I'm surprised you didn't open the show going off PJ Tucker career night or season high night against my Boston Celtics. But I appreciate the growth I'm seeing from you that we're not overreacting to that game.
I mean, listen, winners don't celebrate over the regular season. I know you, Dehls, you like to victory lap the Bucks win, thinking you're going to the NBA Finals. Listen, man, I'm a playoff guy. So for me, I'm not worried about the regular season.
Knicks fan?
I'm not worried about the regular season, Dehls. I'm worried about the playoffs. Okay. I'm worried about when it matters the most. And the bottom line is that
you're locked into the Cavs now. You better be locked in.
The bottom line, Dehls, is that when it matters the most, the Celtics don't show up. The NBA Finals last season, 2 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago. When'd you get eliminated?
It's a football topic, guys. Football episode.
Without Jaylen Brown, you lost. And Jason Tatum got a game. He dropped 50.
Yeah. You lost. So when it matters most, you lose in the first round last 2 seasons. You lost in the finals, even though you was up. I mean, come on, Dehls.
Jaylen Brown.
He almost beat you. Jimmy Butler should have made that shot. I'm sorry. Game 7. Jimmy Butler should have cooked. We know that. But yeah, we know the Bucks will come out the East. That's why, Dehls, I'm not too worried about these regular season theatrics from you, Dehls. I'm a playoff guy. But Riv, how are you doing?
I don't know what I jumped into, man.
This has been going on all year, just all year, not stop, doesn't stop. I'm having a rough week, man. My face is breaking out. My hairstylist hasn't answered. It's been tough. I'm hurting. I'll be honest.
Hey, Riv,
what's up?
I have been too. You gotta change the pillow sheets. and then you got to cut down on the sugar, and you'll be good. Pretty confident in that. And you got to do skincare, brother. And you won't have
it's the soda, man. The soda's killing me, man. I'm telling you, but soda's so good.
The large orange high C's catching up to you.
And we have ginger ale in the house, so we're just stop drinking that.
Ginger ale's good, man. Ginger ale is good.
And then McDonald's orange drink will get you.
Yeah.
I've been a kid. That was my go-to.
I'm in Arizona for the next couple of weeks, the next 2 weeks, I believe. And going from New Jersey to Arizona, the one stark change is that over here they have Jack in the Box. Something I've been getting. Jack in the Box is pretty good, even though that the ranch wrap the other day kind of in my stomach bubble a little bit. But also McDonald's, they have hot and spicy McChickens. In New Jersey, they didn't have hot and spicy McChickens. They took them away. Okay. Yeah, they got hot and spicy McChickens. It's really, really good.
Do you like Jack in the Box?
Jack in the Box is pretty good, yeah.
What's different than just the spicy chicken sandwich you could get here?
You talking about a McDonald's?
Yeah.
It's not a McChicken. It's a McCrispy.
Oh my god!
I don't think there's a difference.
Like I know there's a difference, but
there's definitely a difference in the taste. There's definitely a difference in the taste. Yeah. So just to let you guys know, the intro sound that we've been using at the beginning of these shows it was produced by Saint Saxon Sound, and we want to give them a shout out. You can like and subscribe to the channel. We'll put the link to the channel down below. They make a lot of like different lo-fi beats and stuff, and I've been forgetting to shout them out, but now is a good time to shout them out, and we'll put the YouTube channel down below. But let's get on to these college football rankings, and let's start off with running backs. So Mojo's top 5 running backs in this draft, according to the share price they have, is number 1, Bijan Robinson. I don't think there's any surprise there. He's everybody's consensus number 1. Number 2 is Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that is also, they've been consensus RB1 and RB2. Then the next 3 is Zach Charbonnet, and I hope I'm saying that right. Am I saying that right?
No, it's just Charbonnet. Charbonnet. Okay. Sounds like a nice fine wine.
Yeah. Zach Charbonnet.
That actually does sound fire.
Devon Achane and Zach Evans. So the thing about this year's running back class is I think that there's just far more explosive backs this year than there was any last year's class. Last year it was Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and then everybody else kind of didn't either. They either didn't have the size or the explosiveness and burst that you really want. In this draft, it was hard really coming up with a top 5 list because there are so many players that are deserving of being in the top 5. So Travis, I'll start with you. What is your personal top 5 running back list in this draft?
Sure. So, and it's funny. I mean, on the Mojo stock market, like I oversee that market, but it seldom is that those prices exactly align with my rankings, but they're pretty close. Like Mojo has, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, Devon Achane, and Zach Evans. And the only big difference is that I have, the same top 3, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Zach Charbonnet. But then I have Tank Bigsby as my running back 4 and Zach Evans as my running back 5. So I had Devon Achane in my top 3 at one point, just because I understood that he had that near, Olympic level speed, and he still does. I was actually disappointed in his 4.3-ish time at the combine because I knew he could have done so much better than that. But yeah, the big difference is that I have a lot of confidence in Tank Bigsby because I can look beyond the dumpster fire that was the Auburn offense and really his entire tenure at Auburn and just say, wow, he really overcame in those circumstances despite having an absolute mess to sift through. So yeah, I love Tank Bigsby. I really dating back to pre-college. I was one that put him right up next to Bijan Robinson in my rankings at the time because I am one of those guys that just follows recruiting from early high school on because I want my favorite teams to succeed, and I play in nerdy college fantasy leagues and other stuff that just really is reliant on predicting future success early. But Tank Bigsby, he just didn't have the peak production that we want to see, but he has the contact balance, he has the receiving ability, he's got sufficient size, and at his pro day he actually ran like a 4.46 unofficial 40 times. So he's got some speed to go with that size and strength and just angry running style that he possesses. So really love him. If he actually gets decent draft capital, I'm going to be really happy with his future NFL projection.
Yeah, Tank Bigsby's a beast. I love his running style as well. My number one is Bijan. I think that's everybody's number one. I mean, this guy, as a freshman, averaged 8.2 yards per carry. And I know Dehls has been raving about Bijan for a while, so I'll let him go more in depth on Bijan. I want to go in depth on my number 2 running back in this draft, and that's Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson, to me, is an absolute beast. He's a monster. I know he backed up Bijan Robinson, and he doesn't have the production of these other guys. Looking at Mojo's share prices, Roschon is, I think, 15th or 16th. That's his price right now. But for me, he's going to be a day 2 pick, probably get selected in the 3rd round. And I just feel like he has it all. He has insane bursts. He's 6'2", 223 pounds. He reminds me a lot of Dameon Pierce, except he's bigger. Roschon Johnson has Dameon Pierce's running style. He plays like him, but he's 4 inches taller and he weighs about 6 more pounds. And to me, I think even though Roschon doesn't have the production, you just watch him play in the Texas offensive line. Bijan averaged 6.1 yards per carry. Roschon averaged 6 yards per carry. The offense didn't look much different when Roschon was in there, and there's just a bunch of things he possesses. He can make guys miss. He's a violent runner, and he has pass catching ability as well. I understand the production is not there, but I do think that he is the second best running back in his class. And unlike somebody like Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane, and I think those guys are exceptional, their best traits are their speed. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know if he's a workhorse back at the next level. I think that he has to be in the right scheme and system. I don't know if he's somebody that you're going to be able to consistently give 20-plus carries a game. I think he's going to be in a running back by committee group where I think Roschon Johnson has the size to really be a workhorse back at the next level. And I think that he got overshadowed by Bijan Robinson because Bijan is so great, but it's not the first time that's happened. Last year, Brian Robinson, I was very high on him coming out of the draft, and he was overshadowed by a plethora of Alabama running backs throughout his career. And he had a pretty good season with Washington, all things considered. And Roschon reminds me a lot of Brian Robinson, except I think he has a little bit more burst. So I think Roschon Johnson is going to be a stud. 3, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. I think the speed is something that I can't dispute or dismiss, but I think something that does worry me is his rushing yards over expected, is that he kind of didn't break away most of the time. He breaks away with the speed, but in terms of just breaking away from tackles, he's not the best at that. Number 4 is Zach Charbonnet. I think he has RB1 size, 6'1", 220. He's a pass catcher. He's a downhill runner. He has great wiggle for his size. And number 5 is Kendre Miller out of TCU. I think Kendre Miller, there was a lot of explosive runs on tape that I saw from him, and he was 3rd in explosive run rate and 7th in yards over expected. And so I think those are my top 5. And honorable mentions, I have Tajay Spears. I think Spears is somebody that, small school, but I really liked what I saw from him. And Israel Anaconda out of Pitt is also a really good player too. There's just a lot of running backs in this freaking draft, man. Like, I like Zach Evans too. I like Sean Tucker. I like Kenny McIntosh and his 3rd down RB projection. But yeah, my top 5 is Bijan, Roschon, Jahmyr, Zach, Charbonnet, and Kendre Miller.
I like that list. And just like Travis, I'm a big fantasy football guy too. So I've been trading my dynasty leagues. I've been trading for 2023 first for 2 years now because of Bijan Robinson. Tank was in that discussion as well. A couple of years ago, people thought Tank would be in that conversation with Bijan. He hasn't exactly lived up to that RB1 hype that he's gotten, but he's pretty high on my top 5 as well. But number 1, just like everyone else, it's Bijan. He's everything you're looking for in a bell cow running back. I think if you really want to be nitpicky and say there's one thing he doesn't have, he's probably not going to break an 80-yard touchdown. He'll break plenty of 50, 60-yarders, but is he going to be the most elite top-end speed running back in the league? Probably not. But everything else, from running back to blocking to receiver, he's the complete package. I think if you just really want to nitpick and have one negative, it's maybe you wish his top-end speed was just a little bit faster. But again, we're getting really nitpicky here. Number 2, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm a big fan of Gibbs' game. Going back to his Georgia Tech days, right? Coming out as a freshman, 700 total yards. He really got better year after year, and then eventually he ended up transferring to Bama. I remember being in the car getting the news that he was transferring to Alabama. He was one of my favorite running backs in the 2023 class a couple of years ago. So the fact that he was transferring to an SEC school, I was really excited to see kind of the productivity he could have if he could, kind of stand or withstand that compared to what he was doing at Georgia Tech. And he did that this season at Bama, had a career high in attempts, rushing and total yards, yards per carry, touchdowns, and receptions. So while I understand there's some size concerns, I think he came in just under 200 pounds at the combine. I think the fact that he was able to go into Alabama and withstand that type of workload after he didn't do it to the same extent at Georgia Tech, I think is definitely a positive for his NFL future. At number 3, I was a bit surprised because going into this, obviously you hear everyone's top 5, and it's pretty chalk. Most people do have Bijan, Gibbs 2, and a lot of people have Charbonnet 3. But the more and more I watch Tank Bigsby, I moved him up, and he's 3 for me. We'll get into Charbonnet later, but the reason I like Tank over him is just because of that explosiveness. Charbonnet, who I have right behind him at 4, is definitely more of your typical power back. But Tank, 6 foot, 210 pounds. He was great as a freshman, as Travis mentioned, great as a high school recruit too. Had 900 total yards as a freshman and 34% missed tackle rate. Last season, he averaged the 7th most yards after contact per attempt. There's this one play when I was watching film against Alabama where 3 guys come into the backfield. He makes all 3 of them miss. He's able to hit the outside and gain 8 or 9 yards. There's a bunch of those plays in his film that maybe don't get on the highlight film, but he's able to turn a negative play into 7 or 8 yards just because of that explosiveness. I do think he could struggle with some balancing issues there's sometimes where I feel like he should be gaining more yards, and he kind of has this like arm tackle that he's getting through, but then kind of loses his balance. But overall, he's a really good running back. 4, I have Zach Charbonnet, another guy who was able to break out really young, a freshman at Michigan before he had to transfer to UCLA. When I watch him, I see A.J. Dillon. I don't know if just the running style, kind of that upright sort of vibe he has going on. He's not as big as Dillon. I think he's like 20 or 30 pounds less than him. But they're both around 6'1", both power type backs. And Charbonnet, honestly, I have in my notes, he's just a bitch to take down. He's like, I don't think I saw a single time on film where the first guy was able to get him to the ground. So he's constantly breaking tackles, especially arm tackles. You have to get your entire body on him if you want to get him to the ground. He had 806 yards after contact, 53 missed tackles forced, and 24 carries of 15-plus yards. So while I'm talking about him being this power back, he still has enough explosiveness to get those 15-plus yards. And number 5, man, I have like 8 names here. I like Keandre Miller. I like Devon Achane. I like Sean Tucker. I like Izzy. I like Roshan. There's so many guys at 5 here. I think if you're looking for like a bell cow type of guy, Keandre Miller definitely catches my eye. Devon Achane probably has the best speed and might have the best in terms of if he's able to find a role, his ceiling is really high. But being only 188 pounds, you do wonder, can that body, keep up in the NFL? Sean Tucker has some great speed, but Syracuse, obviously doesn't have the best NFL talent coming out of that pool. But my top 4 I feel really solid on. 5, if I had to lean one way or another, I think I would just hope A-Chain finds a good scheme and a good spot and see what ends up happening.
One player in this class that I love a lot is Israel Abanikanda out of Pittsburgh, where you guys mentioned him before. I think if he goes to the right situation where kind of a team like San Francisco that can get him going outside, he is a smooth runner, a one quick cut, and a great acceleration. I have him and Tank Bigsby right at my 5 spot. I went back and forth between those 2 guys, but I think if he goes to the right situation, he could be a really big sleeper from this draft class. At number 4, I've got Sean Tucker out of Syracuse. Him and Charbonnet for me are pretty similar runners, but I think Charbonnet, he reminds me a lot of Damian Harris, where, like you talked about, Dehls, he is just a thick, balanced back that'll break off arm tackles, and he is tough to bring down to the ground. Just 1 fumble, I think, last year. And then at number 2, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. There's some questions with him, of course, being that 3-down runner, but I think his elusiveness so makes him number 2 for me. And then at number 1, I have to go with Bijan. I don't look at running backs ever and say you should take him in the first round, because history shows every time you do, you're going to regret it, and the team that takes one in the second will enjoy whatever RB2 is on the board. But I think Bijan is that rare exception. His elusiveness, it's the closest thing I've seen on Damian Tomlinson. I just can't believe how quick his vision. It's unlike Saquon. His ability to receive is underrated. Bijan's the player I watched most out of this class, And honestly, I would take him in the top 10 if I have a great offensive line, because the compact, like his contact balance, his vision, his acceleration. I don't care if he's not the fastest guy in this class. Devon A-Chain is, and I feel like he's the biggest boomer bust player. Bijan Robinson is the one back where I say, look, if I have an offensive line, I'm okay with taking the top 15, because honestly, he might be the most complete skill player in this draft class.
So do you think the Eagles should take him?
If I'm Philadelphia, I would strongly consider it. Yeah.
I'd rather take Kalijah Kancey and fill up the defensive line now that you lost Javon Hargrave. I think losing Javon Hargrave now opens up that question for now the Eagles drafting defensive line and drafting a more valuable position. I think with how stacked this running back class is, given the fact that the Eagles, they just made the Super Bowl with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell. You don't need to shoot for the stars and get Bijan. You can get one of these guys day 2 and be totally happy and fine with the production, given the offensive line that they have.
That is very true. Is it my turn? Did Travis go, or it's my
Travis
turn?
Did,
I did.
Yeah,
I kicked things off. You're up, man.
I'm up. This is my first year doing it. I'm a little bit excited, doing the draft and stuff. I think I'm the only guy on this platform that's high on Devon A-Chain. I had him pretty high in my ranking. I had Gibbs, Bijan 1 and 2. I think pretty much we all had the same. But his speed and his vision, man, it just popped off the screen for me. Like his ability to just cut in between tackles and his ability to get through these tiny holes. I know his frame is really not ideal. He's small, but he's just so freaking fast. I had him at 5. I had Tank at 4 because he just looks the part like of an NFL player. He just has the size, the physical attributes of an NFL player. Like he's just so strong, big, physical, somebody that can impose his will with his frame. That's something you like in a running back, especially a workhorse that can just come in and impose his will. I had him at 4. I had Chardonnay at 3 for pretty much the same reason. You can't tackle him. And for somebody who can't tackle, he's able to break tackles off. You can't tackle him. You need about 3-4 guys to really impose your will on him to get him down on the ground. That's something you had to go. But to not for Devon A-Chain to not see no love, I thought it was interesting because the speed is something that definitely broke out for me. Like he's just so fast. And even though he's so small, his ability to just get in between those little holes that most backs can't, his vision is different. And he only fumbled twice in college. So that's something you would like to see. That small frame clearly didn't bother him fumbling the ball because he only fumbled twice. So that's something you like to see. And I know his short stature, he's not able to do a lot of things. Like we see with short guys, they're not able to do a lot of things in terms of the route tree. But his concentration is there, his vision in there. So my full list would be Bijan at 1, Gibbs at 2. Chardonnay, is that how you say his name? Such a beautiful
Charbonnet.
Yeah.
But
such a beautiful last name. Charbonnet at 3. I got Tank at 4, and I got Devon A-Chain at 5.
Listen, I think that when it comes to A-Chain, the reason why he's not in my top 5 is because he weighs less than 190 pounds. And you look at the top running backs in the NFL. Let me just name like the smaller ones, like Christian McCaffrey, who like he is small by like RB standards, but he's still like jacked up. Yeah. He's like 210 plus. Tony Pollard looks skinny, but he's 212 pounds. They have a good 20 pounds on A-Chain, and that's why for me, even though he is good running in between the tackles, I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain hits at the next level and stay healthy. So for me, that's like the biggest risk for him is that can he stay healthy at the next level given how light he is?
You don't think he can bulk up?
I do. I will say, actually, I've been as high as running back 3 with him. I just when he did weigh in at 188, I thought he would come in a little bit thicker. But yeah, I think the best case for me with him is like an Austin Eckler, I don't know if you can remember his pre-draft process, but he was an undrafted free agent because he played for like Western Colorado. Like they didn't even have their own pro day. He'd like show up at another team's pro day and absolutely wowed everyone because he weighed in like sub 190. But he was just freaking fast and strong and agile and everything. And so he got an opportunity. Turns out he can catch passes really well. And A-Chain does that as well. And what happened with Eckler is he actually did bulk up. And I mean, he's still bulking up. Like when you see like his workout stuff now, it's like, are we sure he's not 230 pounds? Like, it's just, it's nuts what the transformation when you see somebody go from, not intentionally bulking up to actually finally getting in a pro kind of workout room. And with A-Chain, like he's been a borderline Olympic sprinter for Texas A&M for a long time, like sub 10.2 second 100-meter time. And so he has intentionally not been gaining weight so that he could maintain that speed and compete as a track athlete. And if now that he's going to transition and focus more on football, if he does bulk at all, he's an absolute easy smash kind of hit prospect wise. Because I mean, he was able to carry a bunch of workload even at that smaller size. Like this year, he had over 230 touches, and the next closest player for A&M had barely over 50. Like he was the entire offense. So
did he have a game of like 38 carries too?
Yeah, like and that's at a
carried.
Yeah, and so he has that potential. So I'm glad that we mentioned him because he's somebody who the sky's the limit. This guy is like Chris Johnson level comp and speed and success.
So do you think you think he'll transition, like if he does bulk up, he'll transition more into the Kamara Eckler type role in terms of pass catching and running the ball? More,
yeah, absolutely.
More Kamara, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's in an offense that didn't even pass a ton last year. He had almost 40 receptions, and so he could easily slot into that kind of role immediately. And if he bulks, hey, give him some carries while you're at it too. So yeah, I like Achane a lot. And it's funny, like we've known this class is stacked for a long time. Like Dehls, you mentioned this, but like last year we knew it was going to be trash for a long time. Like back in 2019, that recruiting class, we're like, yeah, this is bad. This is not great. And so we can generally see this coming. And this class could have even been better had a few players just, come out and a few players, wait another year. But yeah, this class is incredibly deep. There's 15 to 18 guys that really actually have profiles that project as, hey, they're probably going to stick and be successful to some degree.
Yeah, I agree. Somebody that we didn't mention, but I think deserves an honorable mention is Tyjae Spears. Tyjae Spears has been an analytics darling from what I can tell. Just like searching his name up on Twitter, he is first in yards per carry on non-perfectly covered run plays or perfectly blocked run plays. So when his offensive line is trash, he's first in yards per carry. This past season, he had 63 missed tackles forced. He played in a weaker conference, so we have to definitely take that into account. And he was second in explosive run rate. So Tyjae Spears is somebody that the analytics, I mean, they really favor him a lot. And what are your thoughts on him, Travis?
Yeah, Spears has been somebody who's rising ever since like Senior Bowl week when he was just embarrassing linebackers in space as running backs do at the Senior Bowl. And he just, I mean, the one play that they played over and over, he was running around, ducks to the left, like stops on a dime and then ducks under the arm of the linebacker and just embarrasses him. And I feel like that play got played 1,000 times. And since then on Mojo, there's been so many people buying into him that his price has risen significantly since the Senior Bowl. So he's been trending in that direction for a while. But yeah, the USC performance, a few other games this year definitely helped boost his stock, and a few of the nerdier metrics definitely favor him as well. I'm not as super confident in him getting top tier draft capital just because I think there are some medical concerns that I don't think a lot of people are aware of with him. So and that's kind of come up a couple other times already just from other teams that have leaked that information. And so I think, around 4-ish probably sounds about right for him, but that doesn't mean he can't succeed. I mean, we just saw Dameon Pierce smash with that kind of capital this year as well.
Yeah, I agree. So to recap this and just the running backs in general, is your top 5, do you think that they're going to go off the board in order, or who do you think is drafted first and then second and then third and et cetera?
No, I think honestly, Mojo does a great job of projecting where players are going to go because like there's the metric side of things that helps predict the price. There's people actually putting their money where their mouth is on these players, and 3, there's a bunch of mock draft data informing the pricing as well. And so I think it's a good bet that the first 4 running backs off the board are going to be Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, and Devin Achane, and it might be in that exact order. Achane because of the elite speed, Charbonnet because of kind of like the total package, but not being as elite as the other 2 in any regard. But beyond that, I think it's anyone's guess as to who could be the running back 5. And I think that probably we kind of felt that just in our rankings. Like there's a lot of directions you could have gone in that running back 5 slot. But if I were to guess, it would maybe be Zach Evans just because back when he was a recruit, he was actually the number 1 running back in this class, in his recruiting class, over Bijan Robinson for the majority of the recruiting time. But the only reason he wasn't at the end was because he was being a little bit of a drama queen and ended up not even declaring or committing until like May or June before his college career kicked off. And then kind of things didn't go perfectly at TCU. He got injured after having an immensely successful start to his sophomore season, transfers to Ole Miss, and then is outproduced by a true freshman in Quinshon Judkins this past year. And so it's like, wait, what's going on with this guy? Like he looks like the next Nick Chubb, but he's being outproduced by this so-and-so and is having to share carries with this so-and-so and then transferring. And is he a head case? We don't know. But if an NFL team is just going on upside and ability and avoids the potential red flags in his profile, they'll say, yeah, Evans is clearly a top 5 back in the class. And so it could be a surprise that he is the 5th back off the board. But you mentioned John with Izzy Abanikanda, that guy, he's going to be 20 years old for most of his rookie year. Like he's incredibly young, incredibly fast, had like over 100 yards in all but 2 games this past year, including a 300+ yard game against Virginia Tech this year. If some team looks at his athleticism, his age, his overall profile, they could take him 5th overall in terms of running back ranks as well.
Yeah, no Roschon Johnson love, huh?
Absolutely not. Not as the 5th back. No, not as not as the 2nd back. I will say, it's been a while since we've seen like a 1-2 punch come into the league and both find success or even like stick at all. Like Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Like that's what it reminds me of. Like Mixon, a lot of people had him as the running back 1 or potentially like running back 2 or 3 in that class. And Perine was like incredibly strong. Like he had that feature back build, but he wasn't necessarily a wow type prospect in any regard. He got like, 5th round capital or whatever. He's still in the league today. I think Roschon sticks for a long time. I just am not sold on the upside when it comes to his profile.
Okay.
We had the UNC running backs a couple of years ago. That was the first one that came to mind. We got Javonte and Michael Carter.
Yeah, and body types. Those are, that's similar situation. I just felt like where they actually slot in his prospects to me felt more in line with the Bijan and Roschon comp.
I mean, I'm surprised because I don't know, man. I just watched Roschon and he looks special, man. I'm not gonna lie, he looks special. I think he sticks around in the league, and him being priced at like the 16th best running back, I'm definitely gonna invest and put a lot of money into him.
We're gonna come back.
That's what makes Mojo fun, man. Like you can you can just be like, hey, I don't agree with that price, so I'm just gonna buy this price.
Yeah, definitely this draft. I think when it comes to running backs, outside of maybe like the top 2-3, it's like the beauty's in the eye of the beholder with a lot of these guys. On to tight ends, which is probably more straightforward than running backs because there's some good tight end prospects here, but I think that after 5, there kind of is a drop off. I would say probably after 4, there's like a bit of a drop off, and like there's a lot of unknowns. So Mojo's top 5 is Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington, Musgrave, and Laporta. For me, Mayer is the first tight end, the best tight end in the class. I think that Dalton Kincaid has more explosiveness. He's lighter, and although he is lighter, he is a willing blocker, but he reminds me a bit of like Mike Gesicki in a way, where I think Michael Mayer, although he's slower, he's more of like the down-to-down tight end. He's just going to move the sticks for you. Is not going to generate a ton of explosive plays like probably Kincaid could, but I love the consistency of Mayer, and I'd rather bank on that and banking on his ideal tight end size than Kincaid. Darnell Washington is a beast. He's number 3 for me, and his athletic profile is insane, but the production for me just wasn't there. And on film, he didn't look like the athlete that tested at the combine. Like I didn't watch him and say, wow, Darnell looks like a freak on the field. His testing numbers show all of that, but on the field, it didn't really feel like he separated himself as an athlete. I think the big thing with Darnell, though, was that he can block really well. He's 6'7". He weighs 270 pounds. So if you're looking for a tight end to be a consistent pass catcher, but also block well and be in a running scheme, then he can fit perfectly into that mold. Number 4, I have Sam Laporta. I think that the receiving production is there at Iowa, and he looks like he has some like twitchiness to him. And number 5, I was really struggling who I wanted to go here. I think Luke Musgrave looks good on tape, but he only had 2 games this past season and then he got injured. So I think there are injury concerns with him. I actually went with Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan. I think that he's just a consistent tight end, and I'd rather bank on that than somebody that's injury riddled like Musgrave.
Okay,
nice.
How's my audio, by the way? Is it any better?
It's still messed up.
John,
you should just connect your laptop, bro.
Connect my laptop.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead with my my
Travis, you could go.
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael Mayer has been like the tight end one, I think, for a long time in this class in terms of just consensus rankings, because he was immediately productive at Notre Dame. He was a 5-star coming in, so he was already impressive. Like, we knew he was going to just dominate. And Notre Dame is probably a top 5 school in terms of producing NFL tight ends, just historically speaking. And so, yeah, there were a lot of questions that he kind of had answered by like year 2. We're like, okay, yeah, check, top 50 pick next year, no matter what. And then he followed it up with another 800 plus yard receiving season. So just in terms of like the production metrics that you want to see rather, he has every checkbox checked, like just green, like a conditional formatting compared to anybody else in your Excel document. Green, all the way across. It's Michael Mayer. Like, there's literally no questions when it comes to his profile. And people are like, oh, but he's not super athletic. Dude, he ran like 4.7 or just under 4.7.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually above average for tight ends, like at the NFL Combine. Average historically since 2000 is like 4.75-ish. It's getting a little bit faster in recent years. But seriously, man, like he's fine. Like, there's no real questions at all when it comes to Michael Mayer. And after that, I mean, like, I went with Darnell Washington as tight end 2. And that's mainly, it's more of a projection from a production standpoint, like you said, Joel, because we didn't see him have to produce a whole lot at Georgia. One, they haven't really passed a lot. They did this year some, but they actually went and targeted the tight end 1 for next year a lot instead of Darnell Washington and targeting Brock Bowers, because he's the best tight end in the nation. And if he was draft eligible this year, he might have been tight end 1 anyway. So he had to share a lot of target load with, the best tight end prospect that's actually returning to college. And so I'm not going to knock him too much for the lack of production, because he wasn't necessarily asked to be that guy. But even coming into college, like they didn't know what to call him. So they gave him an athlete designation. It's like, well, he could be an edge rusher. He could be a tight end. He could play any position on the offensive line if he bulks up. He's an absolute just freak. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, he's just a monster. And he comes in 278 pounds or whatever at the combine. He played bigger than that at Georgia. I think he's going to play bigger than that. It reminds me of like last year, Jelani Woods. But he wasn't really hyped at all because he played for Virginia, which had run, well, at the time they ran a just bonkers weird scheme. But he was like 6'7", 270-ish pounds, ran super fast, very similar. Got day 2 draft capital because he was just a freak traits guy. And he had some production, but it was, again, in a weird scheme. But I think similarly, like, the NFL just values guys that fit that archetype of just incredibly large human and is very athletic. And he checks that, and he has the pedigree dating back to high school. He just hasn't been asked to be a receiver that much, but I think he definitely can be. So he's 2 for me. Dalton Kincaid is such a weird projection because, like, had Brent Kuthi not gotten hurt, like, we would not be talking about this. Like, Dalton Kincaid would have been returning to school because he would not have been hyped at all, because Kuthi actually caught more passes than Kincaid did a year ago. And Kuthi goes down. All the tight end targets go to Kincaid. And so we're all hyped up about this guy who, he played for UC San Diego when he came to college initially. Transferred to Utah, accidentally got some snaps. That's being a little bit harsh, but like, he was very close to not being talked about whatsoever. But yeah, it's very impressive that he was, the most productive college tight end last year. But I just had more questions with his upside and athleticism than I think more people do. And we didn't even get verified testing numbers because he was, struggling with the injury. And so, yeah, he's my 3 just because of what he did last year. That was really special. And he's a contested catch artist. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm just, more questions than answers with him. And then Sam Laporta is my number 4. If you can get back-to-back 600-plus receiving yard seasons playing for the trash offense that is known as the Iowa Hawkeyes, props to you, man, because that offense, like, they legit averaged, I think, less than 17 points a game or something. Last year, they couldn't score an offensive touchdown against South Dakota State. I think that was the thing. So, and yet he was still productive. And then 5th is Luke Musgrave, just the upside play with his athleticism, because again, like you said, we didn't see a whole lot last year, but he's got that 4.61-ish speed. And so it's rare to find tight ends that can win in man coverage. And it seems that Musgrave is that guy.
So have you been surprised to see Dalton Kincaid mocked above Michael Mayer in a bunch of mock drafts? It feels like a lot of the top analysts are mocking Kincaid over Mayer. I know Daniel Jeremiah mocked Kincaid over Mayer, and he has him as like a top 20 pick in the draft.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that there's a projection expected that he's just scratching the surface because he played basically no high school football, and that's part of why he wasn't recruited. And so there's this idea that he could keep getting better, and that's probably true. But I think that there's a lot more projection there than I think there should be, that people should be comfortable with. I guess, if that makes sense.
It definitely depends what you're looking for in a tight end, because there are so many different options in this class. Mayer, as you guys said, is the most complete, balanced. He produced relatively well relative to Darnell Washington, who could have played right tackle with how much of a freak he is there. I am really high, though, on Dalton Kincaid because his ball skills are special. I mean, his vertical playmaking is really unique. And it was a lot of fun to watch him in this last season, where I feel like if you're looking for the most dynamic receiving threat, it would be him. As you talked about, he could be just scratching the surface, 800 some yards this year. He's actually my tight end one because I prefer those tight ends personally, those big time playmakers who you can play at wide receiver. Obviously, he's not a very good blocker on film, and if he puts on more weight, he may lose some of the athleticism. At number 2, though, I have Michael Mayer, 3, Darnell Washington, 4, Sam Laporta. Iowa tight ends typically perform pretty well on the next level. And then 5, there are a couple of guys. I want to shout Zach Kuntz, 6'7", 255, ran a 4.5 40 and a 40-inch vertical. He is an athletic freak. He was hurt this last year at Old Dominion, but I think if he can stay healthy as a developmental prospect, he could be a pretty good player of this class. But I went with Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State, another tight end that's very athletic, can block well, but was hurt this last year.
Dehls, you're muted, man. We still can't hear you. My goodness, Dehls. You're folding.
Oh, man.
Just connect your laptop, bro.
Glad you mentioned Kuntz, by the way, because he wasn't like, people are like, oh, Dominion, what? Like, they don't make any NFL players. But he actually started at Penn State. Like, and the only reason he ended up at Old Dominion is because he followed his offensive coordinator, who ended up getting the head coaching job there. And so, like, there's a reason. Like, he's not just like this out of nowhere guy. He was a high pedigree, top-notch athlete even coming into college. So glad you mentioned him. He's my tight end 6, but no surprise if he ends up being maybe the most productive.
Yeah, Zach Kuntz is a freak, man. He's what, 6'7", 6'8", 251 pounds. Like, this guy is a freak. Somebody mentioned a good comment here on the live stream. They're saying Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer is like Greg Dulcich versus Trey McBride. What do you think?
Wait, which one's which again?
Greg Dulcich is supposed to be Kincaid, and McBride is supposed to be Mayer.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I really like McBride. Like, he had some silly stats that one year that they only played 4 games, and he literally scored all of their receiving touchdowns. Like he was. I'm still kind of high on McBride, and I think in the same way, both can find success. I definitely think Kincaid is a better prospect than Dulcich was, but yeah, I think it's just a little bit aggressive to mock him like 10th or whatever that a few people were doing at times. That's a little bit much, but yeah, I think I like that in terms of playing style and experience, because Kincaid can even push things vertically, I think, a little bit like Dulcich did. Dulcich was one of the most efficient tight end prospects we've seen. Like, he was, his ADOT was crazy. His yards per reception was insane, like 18, 19, 20. He was top 5 in the nation, I think, a couple times in terms of yards per reception at tight end. So yeah, that's interesting comps there.
Yeah, Greg Dulcich was amazing, man. I love Greg Dulcich last year. He was my tight end 1 last year coming into the draft. Dehls.
How do I sound?
Oh my goodness. Can you just connect your laptop?
Dude, my fucking internet's bad.
Just connected.
It's going to be a better move. And Dulcich this year, I think, is kind of a big-time season with the Russ. We saw that connection last year. So I don't think it's going to be, great prospect, didn't pan out. I think he could really shock some people.
Season. Absolutely. I'm really high on Dulcich moving forward.
So, Riv, what do you think about these tight ends?
Yeah, I guess I'll go because Dehls is acting funny. I'm rolling with John to a degree. I think Kincaid and Darnell probably has the most potential out of all the tight ends. I think when you have two guys that are like mismatched nightmares that can create so much in the open field, I think those guys are the ones where you can kind of circle like, all right, these guys can change my offense. But I got Michael Mayer at 1 because he's just a complete tight end. If you want him to block, he can block. You want to go out there and catch passes, he can catch passes. That's something you like when you can bring in a guy who's complete. You can probably put him in any scheme. Hey, Dehls. You could probably put him in any scheme. You could probably fit him in any system, and he'll be fine because he's pretty complete. So I have Myers at 1. I have Darnell at 2. I just think he's just a mismatched nightmare. He's just an athletic freak. You put him out there in the field, no matter who's guarding him, I think he can exploit that matchup, and that's something you want in your tight ends, pretty much another receiver that can just break the game and change the game. I got Kincaid at 3. I think for a lot of things John said, he's a guy who can catch contested passes. He can go out there. He can kind of be like Darnell in terms of being a mismatch nightmare. But like Travis said, there's a lot more question marks to a degree. So I don't think you can have him higher than 3. And I think the guys below him aren't better than him. But Myers and Darnell Washington, I think, are the comfortable 1 and 2. And then number 4, I have Sam Laporta. I just think he gives you a lot of what you want, in terms of you want to put him in overs, crossers, flats. He can do that for you. And then 5, Luke, is that how you say his name? Miss Gray. Combination of size and athleticism, pretty much. He just has all of that with him.
Mr. Dehls.
Hey, Dehls.
Rough day. Can
you
hear me?
You look great. Sound great.
You sound better.
Okay. It's a matter of time until my internet just goes out and I freeze.
Man up.
1, here we go. Top 5. I have Dalton Kincaid number 1. Michael Mayer is number 2. I do feel like they're kind of in a tier of their own, with Darnell Washington being 3. But starting off with Kincaid, I think Travis mentioned this as well, but I love his story, right? 0-star recruit, played 1 year of high school football, started at San Diego, had to transfer to Utah. And more than anything, I just like my tight ends being athletic. And that's why he has the edge over Mayer. And Mayer is not like some slowpoke who's not going to be able to use any athleticism. I just think Kincaid is more athletic. I also think he's a bit more versatile. Last season, he played 705 snaps, 376 were traditional inline, 257 were in the slot, and he also had 50 snaps out wide. So I think you could line him up in a few different areas. So while he's mostly a tight end, I like the fact that he's kind of like a wide receiver type of build almost, that he could use his athleticism to stretch the field. He didn't test his 40, but just based off tape alone, I feel like he has pretty good speed. He could high point the ball. He could bring contested catches as well. And once he gets the ball, he has tremendous acceleration. I don't know if his top end speed is elite, but his acceleration right when he gets the ball, I feel like he puts his foot in the ground. He could pick up a lot of yards. Number 2, as I mentioned, is Michael Mayer. He's kind of your typical old school tight ends, not in a negative way. If I had to compare him to someone in previous classes, he reminds me a lot of Pat Fryermuth. They're both 6'5", 270. They both ran around 4.7s. They're both athletic, but aren't going to win consistently on their athleticism. Michael Mayer, though, has been this guy basically since high school, a 5-star recruit, produced right away as a freshman, 450 yards. Each year got better. Sophomore and junior season, 65-plus catches, 800-plus yards, and 7+ touchdowns in each of the last 2 years. And I understand that, Notre Dame didn't have a ton of target competition. But on the other hand, you also have to think when defenses are going to play Notre Dame, they know the number 1 option is Michael Mayer. And even with that, he was still able to produce and put up really good numbers while at Notre Dame. Number 3, Darnell Washington. His number 1 trait is his size, 6'7", 270, ran a 4.6. The size and speed combination is something you don't really ever see. I mean, Kyle Pitts was 6'6", but I think he was like 240, right? So Washington has 30 pounds on him, is obviously going to come in right away. And I think he's going to be able to start because I think you guys might have mentioned, John, he's basically like a 6th offensive lineman. So even if right away he's not going to be able to be used as a pass catcher, or maybe he still has to develop as a pass catcher since he only has 45 career receptions, 3 career touchdowns, I think as a blocker, he's going to have a spot on a roster spot starting in the NFL pretty soon. And I know that the production isn't always there, but if you go back and look at some of the best tight ends, like Gronk didn't have a really productive college career. A lot of it, especially in college, is based on your scheme and based on how the offense is run. And for Washington, as Travis mentioned before, they have a tight end and Brock Bauer, who is probably going to be the number one tight end next season. He was a 5-star recruit, so he was kind of pushed to the side in more of a blocking type of role. 4 and 5 are kind of toss-ups by Laporta and Musgrave. I have Laporta over Musgrave just because Musgrave, we didn't really get to see a lot out of him. 2020 was the COVID year. He only played in a couple games. I think he had 12 total catches that year. And then last season, he played 2 games and kind of had this like undisclosed knee injury. I'm not sure if we ever got like an exact thing of what ended up happening with him. But Musgrave, 6'6", ran a 4.6. You could see the physical tools. And even in these 2 games this past season, he put up 180 yards in those 2 games. So you saw some of the traits you'd like to see. But I think I would have Laporta just a bit over him because I feel more confident in his floor at least. He's versatile. He had 20.5% of his snaps were out wide, which was the most of any tight end in the nation. He could line up in the slot or inline as well. He's much more of that short to intermediate type of game. He had an average depth of target of 7.1, which is pretty insanely low. It's a lot of slants, a lot of screens, ins and outs that are before the first down marker. But he also, after the catch, is really good. 360 yards after the catch, which was 3rd amongst tight end, 20 missed tackles, which is 2nd among tight ends. So I know he didn't have the downfield ability like a guy like Kincaid or Washington can, but I think his short area ability to win is going to be valuable for teams.
My biggest fear with Kincaid is that he is Hayden Hurst or Mike Gesicki. That's my biggest fear with him. And Hayden Hurst was a top prospect. I mean, he got drafted over Mark Andrews, and Hayden Hurst was supposed to be the Ravens tight end number 1. But that's my biggest fear with Kincaid, where Michael Mayer, I think that people just gotten bored of him because he's just been the model of consistency every single year. But I think he's the only tight end worthy of going in the first round, in my opinion, unless a team is willing to expand Darnell Washington's offensive role and they really bank on his projection. Because I think Darnell, if he hits like his absolute ceiling and peak, he could be the best tight end in this draft by far and away. But I think off of production and just projection on a realistic level, Mayer is tight end number 1 for me, a first rounder. Kincaid and Washington are day 2 guys. And I would love to see Michael Mayer go to Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. I think if he's in Cincinnati with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, I think that offense is going to be even better than what it has been in years past. And you're going to hear a lot of Joe Burrow.
I like Mayer's floor for sure. Like Mayer, like you said, first round pick because
he's baby Gronk.
He's very safe. Like I don't think he'll ever be a top 3 tight end in the league, but year 1 he's going to come in and he could have 500 yards, right? So he's like Zach Ertz. Yeah, that's going to play a large role, I think, in his draft.
He could definitely be better than Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I mean, I really do, and he really just comps like Zach Ertz. Maybe. Like he just looks like steady Eddie. Like he can do literally anything and everything, and is going to be in the league for like 12 years. You know?
Yeah. That's why I think, I don't know. Kincaid is good though. I like his explosiveness, but part of me is just kind of scared that like, what if this guy's just Hayden Hurst? What if he's just Mike Gesicki? You know,
what makes you think of Hayden Hurst for his comp? Because I look at Dalton's hands, especially for somebody that's only been playing for 4 years. I'm just like, this guy's a natural.
Hayden Hurst is explosive, and he's somebody who is that mismatch guy. He can line up in different places, but he's not a good blocker at all. He's a liability in the run game. And I think Kincaid, in college, he struggled on film blocking. In the NFL, even though he tries, there's only so much you can do. You know, even if you try, I just don't think he's strong enough to block at the next level. So that already kind of limits what he can be in your system.
Yeah, everyone's going to have roles. If whoever drafts Kincaid, probably have to draft him day 2. You're drafting him knowing that he's not going to come in and be an elite blocker. So his role should be more pass catching, receiving, slot work as a big slot. But I understand. Mayer is more well-rounded. Washington's the best blocker out of all of them, probably has the highest upside. It's just a matter of you have to, and it's like anything else, any other position, whatever team he goes to, you hope they have a creative offensive coordinator who's going to use them to their strengths. Because if you put Darnell Washington out there and you try to use him like he's fucking Kyle Pitts, it's probably not going to have a great rookie year, right? You could hope over time that he could become that athletic freak plus have the receiving ability.
But right now, I think all of these guys have positive traits, some elite traits. You're just really banking on that OC being able to, bring that out of them.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Travis, before you go, any sleepers that you're going to be investing in on Mojo during this draft season? Who do you think is going to rise up the most from now until the draft?
That'll be interesting. It's funny. With my role and what I do, I can't even technically say like, "Hey, I would invest in this player."
Yeah.
Like it's, but I will say it's just interesting to see how quickly some of these players have been moving. I mean, like we mentioned, Tyjae Spears earlier. Like we've seen. Dalton Kincaid has risen like crazy. Faster than almost anybody else. He is, like you said, like we talked about earlier, the tight end 2 on the platform. And if the buying action keeps on rolling, I'm not sure that's going to stop, especially if he actually gets first round capital. But it will be interesting just to watch it, because this tight end class overall is one of the best we've seen in recent memory, maybe the best in terms of the depth of the class. And so because of that, we could see 5 of these guys going like the top 50-ish picks. Like there have been mocks where that happens. And so if that actually comes to fruition, like all 5 of these guys are going to see an uptick in their price. And so we could see the entirety of the top tier of this tight end class see their prices rise, which is not normal for the typical draft class. We usually see a few guys that dip and on draft day because we don't see as many of these guys go early. But this guy's really, it could seriously happen. And but guys in like that second and third tier at the position at tight ends, and I'll get to running backs in a second, but in that second and third tier, like Will Mallory tested really well out of Miami, and his current price point, he's been rising. He's under $3. And so if he gets early capital somehow, that would be another player who could go sky high. I'm not sure where he'll be selected, but he's already been rising. You mentioned Schoonmaker at Michigan. He's been somebody that his price has dipped a little bit, but it's into a range now. If he gets that capital, he could definitely go and see a price uptick as well. Davis Allen of Clemson has been rising. He doesn't have a long-term career even at the tight end position, but he's somebody who's already been rising. And again, if he's drafted very early at all, there's huge upside and potential to see the price double, if not more, at the tight end position. So lots of guys in this class that could see day 2 or better capital, could see like 8+, like that would be super weird, but it could happen. And so that's what's intriguing with these tight ends. But the running backs, like I said, we've known this class is super deep for a long time. But you mentioned Rashawn Johnson. He's like running back 15 in terms of price on Mojo right now. We're not going to see 15 guys go inside round 2 and 3. That just doesn't happen anymore. Like we typically see like 8, 9, 10, something like that. There's just a bunch of guys in that conversation. But if you identify the correct one, even guys like Eric Gray that we didn't even get to him, but he's like 2 years removed from being in the running back 1 conversation in a class because of what his potential was. And he's actually under $4 right now. Like there's a number of guys, like the speed of Keaton Mitchell out of East Carolina, the overall balance of the profile of an Evan Hull of Northwestern, Dwayne McBride, even UAB running back.
Yeah.
I didn't mention him, and there's some people that really love him. So a bunch of guys that are even cheaper than your boy Rashawn Johnson on Mojo that are at super interesting price points. And if they do get earlier capital than's currently expected, there's opportunity for a big boom to their price and some free value.
My hot draft take is Rashawn Johnson, top 7 running back selected in the draft.
Mm-hmm. That'd be
that
great.
Could happen. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be a really stark jump for him.
Yeah,
I think it can. Zay Flowers, somebody else, has also been moving a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, when we just IPO'd like 63 more rookies here recently, and Zay Flowers was the biggest and mover and the fastest mover that I think we've had since I started in terms of college football players. Like just a bunch of people jumping in early, confidently saying, "Oh yeah, Zay, I'm all in on Zay," and so he's been rising, and so that is not sure how much further he's going to rise before the draft, but if he gets, like let's say he goes ahead of a guy like Jordan Addison, like you mentioned some doubts with him, or if he goes ahead of a guy like Quentin Johnston, Mr. AJ Green / body catcher, I guess, the body catching AJ Green, that's who Quentin is. If he goes ahead of any of those guys, his price could spike as well. So lots of opportunity to be had on Mojo. It's just fun working on like a sports stock market. It's something that I've always thought would be cool if it existed, and now I work for it. So, yeah.
He's dope.
So before you go, Travis, anywhere people can find you, shout out anything you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at @FF_Travis M. And all my just ramblings you can find there. But I don't really do much content anymore. That's how I kind of got this gig in the first place. But all my written stuff you can find on Mojo. Anytime we have a big release, you might find something outlining a bunch of new players there with the written work. And then you can find my podcast, which is actually the College to Canton podcast. I do that with my buddy of RotoViz Radio, Stefan Leco. And so we talk up everything from, college football recruiting to college football to college fantasy to NFL fantasy to, discussions as to who should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's just everything football. So if you love college or NFL, you'll love that show.
All right, sounds good. And I'll be sure to message you once Roshan is in the 3rd round drafted.
Feel free to, you know how to find me, man.
All right, I'll see you. Have a nice day, Travis.
Appreciate
you guys.
Man, I was expecting you to be high on Roshan, Dehls.
Me?
Yeah.
I like Roshan.
Johnson, baby.
A lot of it, especially for running backs, is, I guess it's more of a fantasy, but draft capital matters a lot, right? I know obviously you have like the Isaiah Pacheco's who could bounce, who could just, a 7th round pick could just spark out of nowhere. I'm interested to see where he gets drafted. If he's a day 2 pick, all of a sudden I'm loving Roshan Johnson, right? But as a prospect, I think it shows a lot about his character, staying at Texas behind Bijan. He's a hard worker. He loves Texas. He wants to be there, even though he's not getting a ton of opportunity. But I would have loved to see more opportunity, right? You mentioned the 6 yards per carry. It's the same as Bijan, but the attempts are significantly less. So it's great that he kept up that production. But can he do it in a workhorse type role that I think you're expecting him to?
Respect him, Dehls. Respect him.
He was an honorable mention for me.
And there's a reason why his price is lower. It's because of production. That's it. But I'll guarantee you put Roshan.
Can you 10x him on Mojo? What do you think?
Man, you put Roshan Johnson on any of these motherfucking teams that these other running backs were on, he does better than them. It's a fact. Roshan Johnson is a beast.
I don't disagree. I just wish we would have saw it. Like I respect his, he's sticking to it. But
I saw it. Trust me, Dehls. I saw it. I saw there were times where he looked better than Bijan himself. That's what I saw. He looked better than Bijan himself. And you want to doubt Mr. Roshan Johnson? Relax, Dehls. Relax.
Can we relax? Better than Bijan? Let's be so serious.
No, there were times he looked better. There were times I said, "Listen, what's the difference when this guy's in the game with Bijan?"
Oh yeah, I guess
looks that good.
If you get 500 carries between both of them, Roshan's gonna look better on 10 of them, right? Like it's bound to happen. Like,
listen, Dehls, you're just being disrespectful.
I'm not thinking he's better than Bijan. You didn't say he was better. You just saw there was moments.
There was some plays where there was the Zeke and Pollard effect. I'm like, yo, who's this backup that is better than this starter?
You've got to respect Bijan, man. He's one of a kind. I think Bijan's
generational.
He could be the best running back prospect since who?
He's in the Saquon tier.
He's not even Breece Hall, man. Let's be real.
That elusiveness he has in the vision is on another level, man.
He's a better prospect than Breece.
No, yeah, Bijan is amazing, but Breece Hall is a better prospect.
What are we doing?
Breece Hall, baby, yo. Honestly, you're a Jets fan. You're a Jets fan, Dehls.
I was pushing Breece last year. Don't get me wrong. I was mentioning him with fucking Adrian Peterson and stuff. But to say he's better than Bijan, ugh.
So you're a guy that you count to Adrian Peterson saying he's better than Bijan. You're like,
No, I was serious.
Are you serious?
Oh, I had to push my Breece agenda I forgot what we were doing. It might have been rookie of the year. Goodness. I think it was breakout running back. And I was like, I think it was his speed score or his athletic score on Next Gen Stats. It was like him, Adrian Peterson, Saquon, and I was trying to push it. Would have been right.
But you know what you want real quick? Bijan, he could be like Alvin Kamara, where he had to transfer out of Alabama behind Damian Harris, Kenyon Drake, and Derrick Henry, and then 4th round pick breaks out. We'll see.
You said Bijan, not Roshan.
For Roshan,
I meant Kamara or whatever. I mixed the two of them.
What the hell?
I don't know.
NPC Santos, stop changing the time. You heard that, John? Stop changing the time.
We started early, didn't we? No, we didn't.
Smear 60, Rivers my hero.
He's my hero too.
Charles Gibson Carter, defensive tackle from Georgia, commented going to hurt his draft, and also his pro day hurt him really bad.
What comment did he have?
I don't know the comment, but I know that his pro day was very poor.
And he's not taking any visits outside the top 10, which is interesting.
Who does he think he is?
I mean,
he's the best player in the class.
He is, but once you have legal troubles and then a bad pro day, like you kind of lose some leverage there.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't think he's going to slip too far, personally.
Yeah, I don't think he gets slipped out of the top 10 either. But I don't know if you just say I'm not taking any visits if you're not in the top 10.
So now, before we go on to the next topic, for one, make sure you guys like this video. And also, Austin Reeves is a new player that Mojo just added onto their app.
Oh my God.
So you can now invest into Austin Reeves if you're interested in that.
Rev, you interested?
Fuck no.
I know John is. John thinks he's, he could be the best player on the championship team.
Real quick, I know it's a football show, but I think we've all overlooked his ability in pick and roll to get guys going. To see a Wayne running pick and roll, creating offense for his teammates, scoring from all three levels, the pick and roll ability for him, that's a very unique skill. You know what? At $73 for Austin Reeves, I would invest in him.
What did you say, Dehls?
I'm curious what you think Austin Reeves is, because every time we bring him up, it's an eye roll, it's a sigh.
I've never heard. We talk about Austin Reeves more than Donovan Mitchell, and that's a legit problem.
We do.
Like, he is a role player. We have not seen him play a playoff game yet, and we talk about him more than stars. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't even like Brandon Ingram, but he's been on a tear, and we keep talking about Reeves more than Brandon Ingram.
Reeves playmakes like Brandon Ingram, to be honest with you. Ingram's the best playmaking forward in the game, at least among wings, and Reeves could get to that level and pick and roll.
Look,
what are we doing, John?
Get in there.
I think the Lakers are winning so much they're gonna fuck around and play the Suns round one.
I've just never seen us.
They're the 7th seed right now with 2 games left.
I thought they were 6.
No, Golden State went in and dropped them to 7.
I've never seen us gloat about a role player so much on the show. Like, Joel does it with PJ Tucker. It's like funny and jokey and whatnot. But like, dog, we talk about this man like he the second coming to Michael Jordan.
I mean, PJ Tucker's won the championship.
Yeah, Giannis won the championship.
No, but who was the guy guarding KD in the series?
KD averaged 35.
That's KD though. Who was the guy? Who PJ Tucker was lockdown defense.
They went to 7.
He's heart and soul of the team. That's why they didn't win the championship the very next year.
I'll give you that.
PJ Tucker went to Miami. What they do? Went to the conference finals, took the Celtics to 7. Should have beat them. That's what PJ Tucker does.
Should have beat them.
That's what PJ Tucker does.
They lost at their home court. Game 7 was in Miami.
Now, there was a report that came out that DeAndre Hopkins and the Cardinals might just end up cutting him because right now what's holding back a trade is draft compensation. The Cardinals want a package similar to what the Panthers got for Christian McCaffrey. And just to summarize that, McCaffrey went for a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round pick. And there's no team that's willing to give that type of capital for DeAndre Hopkins, mostly because we see Brandon Cooks get traded for a 5th round pick. We see Jalen Ramsey go for a 3rd round pick and then the backup tight end. So I doubt that the Cardinals get the ideal return for Hopkins, but I think that it would be dumb to just like outright cut him. Like, I think a 4th round pick is better than no pick if you have to trade him. So I don't know what the holdback is here, but DeAndre Hopkins is still one of the top receivers in the game, 10th in yards per game. And when Kyler Murray was healthy, he was 3rd in yards per game. And I would love to see him to go to one of these contenders like the Chiefs or the Bills and give Stephon Diggs a receiver opposite of him that is elite. The Ravens if Lamar stays, but that's looking unlikely. And then in the NFC, man, what if the Cowboys make another splash move? And then they just say they got Cooks.
You need that.
They got Cooks. They got Diggs. And then they got Hopkins. You're not stopping that, Dehls. You're not stopping that.
To push the Cowboys.
Why didn't you say CeeDee Lamb?
You're just saying the moves they made this offseason.
Yeah.
Cooks, Diggs.
You said Diggs.
Oh, Gilmore.
No, I said Gilmore.
No, you said Diggs. But
you said
Gilmore. But listen, Cooks, Hopkins, CeeDee Lamb. You're not stopping that, Riv.
I agree. You're
not stopping that, Dehls.
That's a tough, nasty.
You're not stopping it.
Riv's the Eagles fan.
He said Riv.
You're not stopping that.
No, he said my name. He said my name first.
Okay.
He said Riv. I just think DHop's kind of old. This isn't like I think if this was DHop and he was 27 years old, I think the market would look a lot different. Especially like giving a guy of that age a big contract is kind of tough. And DHop's dealt with injuries. Like he's dealt with legal problems, he's dealt with injuries. So this isn't a healthy DHop. This is a guy who, if he does play, we know he's giving you 80 to 100 yards, 8 receptions, probably a touchdown. But there's a chance he does not play the next week. Injury concerns, legal problems, his age. So these are big concerns. So I can understand, like DJ Moore, CMC were different packages. They were younger, much younger players. CMC does have injury concerns, but he's a much younger player. So I think the age thing is really big. I wouldn't say cut him, though. I think Arizona can still get something for DHop if they lower the price. I think if they lower the price a little bit, you can still gain something from DHop. And there's no point in cutting him because you have to build up some sort of assets. You have to keep building, keep climbing. You pretty much have Kyler Murray, who's probably not going to play for most of next year. You have a pretty naked defense. You lost Byron Murphy, J.J. Watt retired and stuff like that. You just have Budda Baker and others. Offensively, you re-signed Robbie Anderson, but that's okay. Rondale Moore is 5'9". You don't want him to be your number one. AJ Green retired. So you don't have a receiving core. Your offensive line stinks. Your running backs aren't that good. So you're pretty much just Kyler Murray and others. So it's like you're pretty much stuck in a position where you need as many draft picks as you can get, and you have to bulk up the defense through the draft. You have to go get money. You paid Kyler Murray, so his contract is going to kick in soon. So that's going to be a big issue. The Cardinals are pretty much just stuck in kind of like limbo right now. And it's not nothing where they can't get themselves out of, but you have a new coach also too. So now you have to figure that out and see how good he is. They're just really in a place where there's no real direction, and they kind of have a lot of things holding them back.
The Cardinals are in a really tough spot. Obviously you get a new head coach, Jonathan Gannon comes in. But as Riv mentioned, Kyler's going to be out basically the whole year. So if this was a team that didn't have a quarterback on the roster, or maybe had a quarterback we were questioning about who didn't have a big contract, I feel like the future is a bit more clear. For the Cardinals, though, this upcoming season, they have the 3rd overall pick. I could really be in favor of trading back in extra picks, but also if you want Will Anderson or Jalen Carter and you just think one of those guys could be a Hall of Fame level player, go for it and don't get cute. But the future is what scares me the most because this Cardinals team is going to be terrible. The NFC's ass. It's the worst conference. This is the worst we've seen the NFC in a long time. And they might be the worst team in the NFC. So what makes that tricky is this time next year, it's very possible the Cardinals are holding a top 5 pick, top 3. They could legitimately be the worst team in the NFL next season. We don't even know who their starting quarterback is going to be. So they could be in a situation where they have a top 2 or 3 pick. They could get one of these top prospects, but you already have Kyler Murray under contract, and trading him would have such a huge dead cap hit that it probably doesn't make a lot of sense financially to trade him. And then maybe next year you could trade down and get a boatload of picks. But for at least this next season, it's hard for me to sit here and really look at the state of the Cardinals and have a positive outlook. We're not going to know if Jonathan Gannon's a good coach year one. I don't think anyone's expecting the Cardinals to have a great defense given their personnel. So if he ends up having a bottom 5 defense, are we going to look at the players or are we going to look at the coach? More likely, we're going to look at the players. Then offensively, without a quarterback, they're not going to score a lot of points. So again, it's hard to look at the offensive coordinator that he's bringing over and say, can he actually call plays or is he just, a product of his team where he doesn't have really any skill position players and coaches? So the Cardinals right now is just in a really tough situation that it's hard to evaluate your new head coach and staff. And it's also your future is kind of murky because you like Kyler Murray. Are they in love with him like Joe Burrow? Probably not, to the sense that he's their locked and loaded quarterback for the next 10 years, but they kind of paid him like that already, so it's tough to move off him. Talk about DHop real quick. I have 4 spots in mind. 2 feel a little bit more realistic, or 1 feels more realistic. That's the Chiefs. I think they need an outside presence desperately. You have Travis Kelce there. Juju left in free agency. Tony, Sky Moore, okay.
Tony's ready for a breakout.
But DHop would set that team to another level. The other one's the Giants. They got Waller. It feels like that's the only move they're really going to make in terms of splash moves. But I do think they need another weapon desperately. I don't think Darren Waller, Saquon, and the surrounding pieces with Sterling Shepard is really enough to get the most out of Daniel Jones. You're going to be able to get, I think, a similar season to last season, but I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be able to level up with just Darren Waller, who's dealt with injury the last 2 seasons. I think these last 2 teams are kind of outliers, or maybe teams that aren't being talked about. One is the Carolina Panthers. First of all, I don't know if DHop is going to be interested in going there. If he's a free agent, they're not going to compete. But I love the idea of getting your quarterback, whether it's Stroud, Young, whoever, get him legitimate number 1 wide receiver. They traded DJ Moore. Bringing in DHop gives someone that he could rely on every single week, every single game, every single throw to be able to make that 50-50 contested catch, to be able to beat man coverage, to be able to find the soft spot in the zone. To trade for him is going to be hard. They don't have a lot of draft picks. And if he gets cut, he probably won't choose the Panthers. But I like that spot. Then the last one's the Jaguars. I know they just got Calvin Ridley. They gave up a second-round pick, I want to say. But you have to take advantage of Trevor Lawrence being on a rookie contract. Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, it's fine. It's a really good duo. You add DeAndre Hopkins, you're talking about one of the best wide receiver trios in the entire NFL. You have Trevor Lawrence, who's already shown he could be a top 7 quarterback. So with DeAndre Hopkins, he could take an MVP type level leap next season if they're able to get that done. I just don't know if they're going to be aggressive enough to go out and trade for him, because then once you get into free agency, DHop might like Jacksonville's situation, Florida, no state income tax. But then if you have the options like the Chiefs and the Bills, I have a feeling that he's going to lean those 2 teams over Jacksonville.
DHop in Jacksonville would be absolutely disgusting, but I think the reason why no one's acquired him is because he's got $22 million. You got $30 million cap hit and a $22 million dead cap. So for the Cardinals to cut him would be a massive L, because a top 10, top 15 receiver at his worst. But I also feel like DHop, we've yet to see him in the playoffs with a real quarterback. In 2021, he was hurt after undergoing knee surgery. I would love to see him with Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, but for Arizona, they need to get something in return for a receiver that is going to take Kyler Murray to a whole different level. And so I'm really hoping, selfishly as a football fan, they cut him so they can go to a real team like the Chiefs that don't have the cap spending to then trade for him. But at the same time, for Arizona, cutting him would be such an L here. Cutting a top 15 receiver who's got a $22 million dead cap, there's just no win there whatsoever.
I think that the Cardinals would save $19.5 million if they cut DHop post June 1st.
You could do the designation.
Yeah,
I was looking at Spot Rack. Said
Yeah,
$22 million dead cap.
So I think they'd save money if they cut him post June 1st. But listen, the bottom line, when we talk about the Arizona Cardinals are the worst team in the NFL. They are in the worst position for the future in the NFL. They're paying a quarterback that we're not even sure is a legitimate franchise quarterback $200+ million. Kyler Murray, yes, he has the talent and the skill, but the intangibles, the leadership, we're not sure it's all there. The offensive line stinks. If they cut or trade DHop, they have no number 1 wide receiver. Hollywood Brown is their best receiver. They have no running back. Their defensive line stinks. They missed on 2 linebackers in the first round, in Xavier Collins and Isaiah Simmons. They just let go of Byron Murphy. He's in Minnesota. That was their best corner. The Cardinals lack talent. They lack future assets. And the best thing for them going forward is possibly stinking and trading a top 3 pick that is going to be a quarterback to one of these quarterback needy teams and getting a boatload of draft picks. But the bottom line is that the Cardinals are directionless. And the worst part about it is that their coach, Jonathan Gannon, I think is going to be a disaster. He's going to be one of the worst coaches in football. And the Cardinals, with paying Kyler a big time contract, with having one of the worst coaches in the NFL, this is going to be a dumpster fire.
And I think the worst part is you have to almost wait on a rebuild, because listen, they may trade the picks this year, right? It's possible they trade the number 3 overall pick and get those, future assets. But the biggest asset you're going to get is likely going to be in the 2024 draft. When you have all of those quarterbacks, you'll likely have a top 5 pick again. And depending on whichever way they go, whether that's Kyler Murray or the quarterback, it feels like next year really might be the year they reset and really start that rebuild. Gannon, like I talked about earlier, I'm not the highest on him. I don't love defensive-minded head coaches if you could get an offensive-minded guy. But I don't think it's kind of unfair to say he's going to be a disaster, because this might be the worst roster in the NFL without Kyler Murray. So while I agree he's not a slam dunk hire, at least from the outside point of view, like we loved Brian Dable last year. We thought that was a home run hire. This doesn't feel like that. But I also don't think it's fair to say he'll be a disaster, because the team sucks. Like,
it's the worst situation.
Great coach, there's only so much you can do.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that it's going to be a disaster because they talked to Lou Anarumo, and they could have hired him instead of Jonathan Gannon, and they chose Jonathan Gannon over Lou Anarumo, who is a better defensive coach and who is a better defensive game planner. That's for one. When we talk about Jonathan Gannon, I mean, Dehls, he could have fooled you thinking that defense was going to maybe stop the Chiefs in Super Bowl. He ain't fooled me, baby, because the Eagles against
I said they were going to stop the Chiefs.
The Eagles against top offenses and against top quarterbacks were ridiculously awful. They were horrendous. They were awful. You picked the Eagles to win Super Bowl, baby, and you lost. You lost that one because you trusted Jonathan Gannon. And I'm here to tell you, you can't trust that man, Jonathan Gannon. You can't trust him.
Yeah, but I still think even no matter what coach in that situation is still going to be a disaster regardless. That's just a horrible situation.
It's so hard.
Lou Anarumo wouldn't have been a disaster.
How many wins did he do? Gannon, how many wins do they have with Lou?
Lou Anarumo is legitimately the best defensive game planner in football.
How many wins will they have with Lou?
But look at the roster.
How many wins will they have with Gannon?
Their defense would definitely be better. Jonathan Gannon fooled all the odds thinking the Eagles' defense was actually elite.
But Joel, he's not going to change
the win-loss
record.
Who do the Cardinals have on defense?
He fooled you.
Not many
Cardinals have.
Isaiah Simmons.
Not many players, but I count on Lou Anarumo to unlock those players more than Gannon.
That's all he did in Cincinnati. Anarumo. He was probably the best defensive coordinator in football altogether.
Before Lou Anarumo, did you know about Jermaine Pratt? Did you know about Logan Wilson? Did you know about Awuzie became a top corner in Cincinnati? I mean, Eli Apple became a starting level corner, a real good corner in Cincinnati. What are we talking about here? Lou Anarumo
defense actually.
I think Lou's the better defensive coordinator for sure. But for this Cardinals team, it feels like it's really hard for any coach to come in and we feel great about it because the roster is just torn apart.
Okay, the roster, yes, but in terms of coaching and direction, we knew Jonathan Gannon was a bad hire. Jonathan Gannon was a horrible hire. He's somebody that's been he's been a defense coordinator for 2 years, and the Eagles defense has not been good against good competition in those 2 years. You can argue the biggest problem with Philadelphia was Jonathan Gannon, and that's why when he left the Eagles fans were throwing a parade because they knew they just upgraded by subtracting his ass.
Damn.
I don't disagree, but I just don't know if Lou. I don't know if he changes the outcome or the future of the Cardinals. Like you, I feel he'll be a better defensive coordinator. Maybe he could develop the guys better. But if you have this team with really no quarterback and defense that doesn't have much talent, I don't know if Lou is making this.
Well, Kyler Murray if Kyler Murray's back and he's healthy, I definitely feel more confident in Lou Anarumo than Jonathan Gannon.
But there's a chance, like Kyler's going to be out at least the first month of the season, probably longer. And now you're relying on him. You're relying on him coming back middle of the season. The year after an ACL tear for quarterbacks usually don't have the same production. It's really year 2 that they get back to their prior injury type of production. So even with Kyler back this season, I don't think we're going to see the same Kyler Murray we saw pre-injury. I think we'll see that in 2024.
All I'm saying is that although you want to give Gannon the benefit of the doubt, it was a bad hire to begin with.
I didn't love it. But also, I don't know if Lou is drastically changing the direction of this franchise with all due respect.
I feel much more confident in Lou Anarumo. If he was the coach for this team, I'd say, you know what? They're going to be a competitive 4 or 5 win team.
And with Gannon, what are they?
Going to be a 2-win team?
They're probably a 2-win team. But that's if Kyler Murray's healthy, I would feel confident in the Cardinals to be a 7+ win team next year.
Dude, that team's even with Kyler's great.
You just said they're the worst team in the league.
But you look at Lou Anarumo and what he's done schematically, he's going to make any offense he goes up against work, and it's going to be a manageable game for the offense.
Yeah, but they have no offensive line and they have no receivers.
Kyler Murray's had no offensive line since he's been a rookie. He's been fine.
But he's coming off an injury, bro. It's different. He's coming off an injury. It's not the same.
Yeah, but still, even with the bad offensive line, when Kyler Murray's had at least some time, the offense can move.
Pre-injury, though. This is a post-injury Kyler Murray.
So you're saying the ACL is just going to ruin his entire ability?
It's just going to take him a year to get back into the swing of things.
Why would it take him a year to get into back into the swing of things?
Historically, it usually takes.
That's how most players are.
Historically, Joe Burrow didn't happen with him.
Joe Burrow is not.
He made the Super Bowl a year removed from an ACL. I understand. I understand Burrow's an outlier.
Burrow also had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and people. He actually had people to throw the ball to.
Are you discounting Joe Burrow now? Stop discounting Joe Burrow.
No, you're trying to compare Joe Burrow to Kyler Murray.
Are you discounting? No, I know Joe Burrow's way better. I'm just saying.
I agree with you. The talent gap is different.
I just don't agree with the fact that just because Kyler Murray's coming off an injury, he's going to be garbage.
No, he's going to take some time. You're talking about Arizona Cardinals.
He'll be good. He'll be good still. He'll be a good quarterback still.
They wouldn't win 7 games, bro. You know how many games is 7 games?
They can beat the Rams twice. Why can't they?
Where there's number 5 wins coming from, though, Joel?
They can. Okay, let's look at the schedule. Let's look at the schedule real quick. They can definitely beat the Rams twice. The Rams suck.
They can also lose to the Rams
twice.
They can literally lose to
if they had Lou. I'm talking about they had Lou in a room.
Yes, I agree. They can lose to the Rams. That's a division game.
Back and he's healthy. They're not beating them twice.
That's a division game, bro.
Stafford was horrible last year.
You're
talking about Kyler, and Stafford has no adjustment to his elbow and injury.
No, I didn't say that.
What are we talking about here?
But still, there was a lot going on with Stafford.
They're facing the Rams and Seattle twice. You don't think they can at least split that?
So wait. They can split with Seattle, but they'll sweep the Rams? I don't get that. That doesn't make sense.
I think they'll split with the Rams. So they'll split with the Rams and Seattle. I think they can do that. That's 2 wins.
I think it's possible.
Okay.
Can they beat Washington with Kyler Murray?
Maybe.
Probably.
Can they beat Pittsburgh with Kyler Murray?
No.
Well, of course you're going to say that.
Pittsburgh's a touchdown favorite in that game.
I don't think so.
Touchdown.
And don't forget, the Niners sweep them 2 games. They beat them twice.
They can beat the Giants.
Kyler before we take care.
I guess with Kyler, they're like a 4-point favorite.
They face Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, the Giants, and the Steelers. Those are the games on the schedule that.
Oh yeah, so Atlanta and Chicago are winnable for sure, but
they can beat Chicago, Houston, Atlanta. That's 3 wins. If they split with Seattle and the Rams, that's 5 wins. They can beat the Giants at 6 wins.
They can't beat the Giants. They cannot beat the Giants.
They can beat Washington at 7 wins.
But we could argue the opposite and say they can't beat the Giants. They're not beating Pittsburgh. Chicago's better. Houston's
but we can also say, so worst case scenario, they don't win those games, but we can also say that they could win those games. So best case scenario, they can still win 7 games. All I'm saying is that they are not this team that just cannot win these games if they have Kyler Murray healthy.
You got it
with a good defensive coach, because I think Jonathan Gannon is not a good defensive coach. So with a good defensive coach, no, I'm pretty sure
the Giants game, Houston, Chicago, then all those easy games with the back.
If Kyler comes back in the second half of the season, and most of those easy games are in the second half of the season, they can definitely win.
But my only thing is, who on the defense is he putting out on the field and making better? Like, who on the defense outside of Budda Baker is good?
Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins do have untapped potential.
You just said they missed those 2 linebackers 12 minutes ago.
They missed. They were first-round picks. They were first-round picks.
They have untapped.
Well, you just said they missed them before.
Isaiah Simmons, he is average for a first-round pick. He's a bust. But if he was a third-rounder, it's an okay pick. Zaven Collins they're average players. I'm not saying, but they were picked in the first round to be great. Isaiah Simmons was supposed to be a fucking Pro Bowler.
You just said they had untapped potential.
They do. I think if Lou Room was coaching these guys, they definitely look better.
Well, he's not. And first off, Kyler Murray coming back in the middle of the season would be pointless. The Cardinals, the best case scenario is getting the first overall pick, and Kyler Murray gained some trade value coming off a torn ACL. Because for as long as they have him under contract to 2029, they're probably not going to make a playoff run. At least when Michael Bidwell was running the team and hiring the Eagles defensive coordinator, who was fraudulent all year against elite quarterbacks.
Okay, I think we understand. Okay, I understand. I'm not defending Jonathan Gannon. I'm saying that if Lou Rumo was on this team, I like their projection way better.
We know that. But I'm just saying the best
that's what I'm saying. Don't tell me because I know with Jonathan Gannon, this team's going to be a mitigated disaster. I know that. I'm combating Dehls by saying, listen, Lou Rumo, if he was here, we're talking about them differently. We're talking about them with some hope, because right now with Gannon, they're hopeless. With Anarumo, they would have had hope.
More importantly, could Lou Anarumo rebuild the Cardinals culture?
He definitely could.
I don't
think Gannon is that guy.
For sure. I would definitely be higher.
I think the guy to do that would have been Brian Flores.
If the Cardinals are 2-7, 2-8, and Kyler's ready to come back, there's 5 games left of the season. I mean, you probably put him out there because he wants to play. You want to see him out there. But I wouldn't be shocked if they're saying we're just going to hold him out.
I'm just saying, man, the Cardinals, the defense has some pieces that I don't expect Gannon to maximize. And I think if Lou Rumo was coaching it, they look different. for sure, 100%.
Well, we'll never know. Maybe Gannon gets fired and Lou becomes the coach next year, and we can find out.
Well, you'll see Lou in a room of plenty in the AFC when the Bengals win that Super Bowl, baby.
What the fuck?
Aren't you a Jets fan?
Yeah,
you know that.
What are you doing here?
Joe Burrow, baby.
So
Stop playing with Joe. Stop playing with Joe Burrow.
So where's DeAndre Hopkins going to, fellas?
My 3 Super Bowl favorites: Bengals, Jets, Chiefs, baby. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Mahomes. Those are my picks.
You didn't get Aaron Rodgers yet.
We're gonna get him though.
We're waiting.
And Odell.
And listen, talking about hope, a franchise that seems to they're trying to look for hope right now is the Green Bay Packers. Because Matt Lafleurs made some comments that, we should temper expectations for Jordan Love. And he said, certainly, I think we're fooling ourselves if we think he's going to go out there and perform at the level of the likes of an Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be a different role for him, certainly. And I think we all have to temper expectations for him. Now, I know people like Dehls are going to use this quote, they're going to run away with it, and they're going to use it to talk trash about Jordan Love. But the bottom line, Dehls, and I want to tell you this right now, face-to-face, man-to-man, because you've been really low on Jordan Love. And the other day I tweeted about Jordan Love, and a bunch of Chicago Bears fans came at my neck because they're so insecure about their current situation that they have to shit on Jordan Love. But the bottom line is that I have no problem with Matt Lafleurs saying this. Why all of a sudden in this new day and age do we want these coaches to come out and say, oh, yeah, Jordan Love is for sure going to be the franchise quarterback. Oh, he's for sure going to be as good as Aaron Rodgers. Why make a statement like that and put pressure on him when you can just say, hey, listen, relax. And then once September comes around, he surprises everybody and he's better than anybody thinks. Because the bottom line is that Jordan Love is going to be a good quarterback. That's the bottom line. Jordan Love is going to be a good quarterback. And the Green Bay Packers, given how good their defense is, given the development of Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, they have Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. The offensive line will be healthy. I think they draft another receiver in this draft. They can win the NFC North. And I think Jordan Love is going to surprise a lot of people. And it's not outrageous to think Jordan Love, of course, year one starter will not be prime Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers 91 passer rating last season. Can Jordan Love be that? Can Jordan Love be 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions? Can he do that? I think Jordan Love can be that. I think he can. And we saw the flashes in the Eagles game, man. The Eagles game, he was making throws, he was reading the defense, and even in his first start versus Kansas City, people are going to point to that team and the Chiefs defense being bad. But if you look at the Chiefs schedule after the Packers game where Chris Jones started playing defensive tackle again, the Chiefs only let up 18 points or more one time in the next 7 games. Their defense truly became elite after that Packers game, and it started because Chris Jones moved back to defensive tackle and started causing havoc. Jordan Love reads the field well. He makes quick decisions. He makes quick throws. And in this offense, learning under it, he's going to thrive. And he's going to be a big reason why moving forward, we start saying quarterbacks should sit longer, because Jordan Love is going to take the whole world by storm.
3 years. I don't think
I don't think it's crazy to say that after this season, we're talking about Jordan Love as a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. You have Jalen Hurts, you have Dak Prescott. After that, man,
it's not ridiculous.
After that, I don't know. Can
Justin
he be
Fields?
He can be. He's better than Justin Fields as a passer already.
Whoever the Panthers takes, Stroud, Young.
Jordan Love, I think after this season, we could be saying, yeah, he's better than Kirk Cousins. He's better than Jared Goff. He's better than Derek Carr. I think we could be saying that. So I think after this season, we could be talking about Jordan Love as a top 5 quarterback in the NFC.
You see, that sounds great. Top 5 quarterback in the NFC is such a great headline. But then when you read the actual body of it and you're like, well, the rest of the quarterbacks outside of Hurts are not that special. It doesn't move me a ton. What was your tweet, by the way? Was it he'll be top 5 NFC quarterback?
I said Jordan Love will be a great quarterback. That's what I said.
Oh, just a great quarterback. Because I just see the comments here saying that the tweet was horrendous or some shit.
No, and then the tweet Basically, I just said Jordan Love will be a great quarterback. That's it.
Sure.
And then Bears fans saw it and they're like, "Oh, yeah."
I'm just gonna look at it, you
never know what he could say. He could say he's gonna be.
Oh yeah, Bears fans took it and ran with it because they're insecure about the situation because they're not sure what Justin Fields is yet. I understand the rushing for Fields was all there, but his first 2 seasons as a passer, it's not the trend you want to look at. Although I want to make this clear. I like the trajectory Justin Fields is on. There's no doubt.
Saving yourself.
Jordan Love is going to be better than him.
You saw that, Riv? He's going to say if Justin Fields doesn't pan out, he's going to say, all I said was the trajectory. And if he does pan out, he's going to say, I told you he was on that pace. I respect it.
Talk to us about how you called Jordan Love shit and you made fun of him for years. Talk about that, Dehls. Talk about that.
All I said was he's been sitting on the bench for 3 seasons. I'm not ready to say he's going to be the next fucking Aaron Rodgers or anything like you've been pushing for
I didn't say he's the next Aaron Rodgers.
But for the comments, I have no problem with the comments. I don't know why you thought I was going to come up here and say that this was terrible by LaFleur or whatever, because what he said, I mean, it's not a hot take. Like, Jordan Love's not going to come in and be Aaron Rodgers. Like, as high as you're going to be on Jordan Love, if you think he's going to come in and win multiple MVPs and take you and win playoff games in the first year, it's not going to happen. If this was, maybe Jordan Love going into year 3, year 4 as a starter, we could be having a different conversation. But LaFleur, all he's doing right now is he's just pumping the brakes on his first-time starter who was a first-round pick, who's been a bunch of scrutiny around the league and the media saying, we want to see this guy play. Now we're finally getting to see him play. All he's doing is pumping the brakes. He doesn't want to have any sort of overhype for Jordan Love. In week 1, he goes out those 2 interceptions and all of a sudden people go crazy. No, what he's doing, he's being a good head coach. He's protecting his player. I have no problem with it. What I would say is that I wish we saw a little bit more of Jordan Love. Listen, he had a great 2 drives against the Eagles this past season where it was a situation, the Eagles defense, who, listen, Jonathan Gannon, Joel thinks is the worst defensive coordinator in NFL history, so maybe we shouldn't put too much into this. But, he tore apart that defense for a couple of drives in a situation where they knew he had to throw the ball, and he looked great. He was on time. He looked poised. Everything looked tremendous about Jordan Love. But it's a different situation when you're going into week 1 as a starter, and as the weeks go on, there's film out there about you and your tendencies and what you feel and what's uncomfortable to you, and defenses and defensive coordinators pick up on this. So Jordan Love, it's still a question mark. Is he going to be a terrible quarterback? Maybe. Is he going to be a great quarterback? Maybe. I think at the end of the day, no one really knows. And you could even look and say like, oh, he did this X, Y, and Z in college. And the Chiefs game, well, the Chiefs were, Chris Jones moved to defensive tackle, and that's why he was terrible. I get all of it. With that being said, he's been sitting on the bench for 3 seasons. He has to show up this year. If Jordan Love goes out there and he's 50-50 and he has some good games and he has some bad games, I don't know if we're going into next season stamp that he's the franchise quarterback for the Packers. You're going to have to pay him dangerously soon. You're going to have to pick up that option, I think, this offseason or maybe next and pay him $20+ million. Then after that, you're going to have to franchise tag him for 30+ or give him a long-term contract. So while I don't disagree that sitting quarterbacks is never a terrible idea, when you sit them for 3 years, now you're putting a lot of pressure on one season, kind of similar to Daniel Jones of last year, where he has to show it consistently week in and week out so we feel confident because we still have a lot of tape on the guy.
Oh, sorry. I felt like Joel had a rebuttal.
Listen, Riv, I do. I will say this. I think there's less pressure than if you just – I think sitting for 3 years, and let's get this clear, man. It's not Trey Lance sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo and losing his job to Brock Purdy. It's not that.
He got hurt.
He's sitting behind Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers. First of all, the stray is fucking crazy because
I understand.
Breaks his ankle and is done for the year.
Okay, I understand Trey Lance got hurt, but Brock Purdy came in to the point that John Lynch said that he's a leader in the clubhouse. Well, there's a difference. There's a difference between committing to. There's a difference between not committing to this first round pick because you have Aaron Rodgers versus not committing to Trey Lance. When you have an undrafted, Mr. Irrelevant in front of him, are you kidding me? There's a difference.
I don't think it's that crazy. I think Lynch has to say that.
I think this is the bottom line. I think there's less pressure on the quarterback when they're making this type of transition starting in year 4 versus, oh, you're a top pick. You have no offensive line. You have no receivers. You have no running game. Here, go play and figure it out. I
Zach
think
Wilson-esque.
yes, and there's a lot of quarterbacks that happens to, and they fail because they're put in a bad position. I think Jordan Love, I mean, you look at the Packers, I mean, yes, they need to add a receiver for sure, but this is a good situation. Matt Lafleurs, coach of the year. I understand people are going to point to Aaron Rodgers and discredit everything Lafleurs has done, but Lafleurs comes from a good coaching tree, and I think he does have a good offense system in place with Jordan Love. And I might even tell you this, Dehls. I think Matt Lafleurs might favor Jordan Love more than Aaron Rodgers just because he doesn't have to deal with all the BS around it. Like Matt Lafleurs tells Jordan Love, listen, this is what we're running. You get no pushback. And I think there's less pressure on Jordan Love because he's got to learn the playbook. He's been in this system for 3 years. He's learning it. He's mastered it. He's learned behind the great. I think he's going to be more ready than people expect. And man, I'm telling you, I think that people are high on the Lions this year. Minnesota's still in there in the mix. I know the Bears made a splash in free agency. Don't sleep on the Packers winning this division. Don't sleep on them winning this division.
Do you think, sorry, real quick before you go, Riv, you think who's going to have a better year, Jordan Love or Tua?
Tua, given he has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But I think I will look at Jordan Love and say
he'll be more impressive.
I like Jordan Love more, for sure.
Shocker. Yeah, come on. We know his answer, Dehls. Let's be serious.
I mean, Tua's going to be.
I want to hear him say that Tua's better, just so maybe we could clip that and that
Tua's not going to be better, but the stats. Listen, Jimmy Garoppolo was top 5 in quarterback stats in his time in San Fran in a similar offensive scheme and system. It's not crazy to say Tua's going to have the stats, but in those big time games where you need it, he's going to show why he's not a franchise guy.
I like what the coach did, but I don't think it changes the fact that there's big expectations for Jordan Love. I think regardless of what the coach says, that I still think coming in, you've sat for 3 years, respectfully. Aaron Rodgers is in front of you, so nobody's knocking that. One of the greatest quarterbacks ever. You've sat for 3 years. Now you've had your opportunity. You have, like you said, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, not the greatest supporting cast, but this is a team that, for the most part, has kept most of their defense together. They were, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9 win team last season with Aaron Rodgers. The NFC, like to mention, is weak. So this is a team that still has a chance to win the division and make the playoffs. So I think there is still a high expectation, not for Jordan Love to be elite. I don't think nobody's expecting him to come in, throw 35 touchdowns, but he has to maintain consistent level play for this team every single week, make the right plays, put them in positions to win. And I think that is what Joel's talking about with the impressive stuff. Like for Tua, using him as an example, he has Tyreek, he has Jalen Waddle. So, sometimes they save him. Tyreek Hill is one of the best, Jalen Waddle. So it's understandable. But for Green Bay, Christian Watson's year 2, his year 1, he got better late down the stretch. Romeo Doubs is year 2. So it's like these are young, fresh pieces along with Jordan Love, who hasn't had enough game film. So I think the expectations is extremely high. Will he be good? We don't know. But Green Bay's defense is still intact, so that's something you want to see. But the Lions got better. Chicago did get better. Minnesota is retooling. So those are 3 teams you still got to look out for in the division, in a tough division. Because Green Bay last year, they finished 3rd. They didn't finish 2nd. They finished 3rd. So and the Lions got better. So we don't know if Green Bay got better because we don't know what we're going to see with Jordan Love. But we know Jared Goff was great last year. Kirk Cousins was great. So these are 2 teams that are still in the hunt.
And that's why, Riv, there's not just a ton of pressure and expectation on Jordan Love this year. There is a ton of pressure on Matt Lafleurs. How many coaches get to inherit a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback? The greatest quarterback in the history of the Green Bay Packers. Not many. So I know Lafleurs comes from this great coaching tree, but as you say all the time, Joel, so did Mike McCarthy in Dallas. And there is fog of war here, not only Love given sophomore year at where it was, Utah State, right? Very good season, puts himself in position to be a top 15 quarterback. And his 2021-2020 season has a lot of interceptions, falls to the back end of the first rounds. But the Packers did do one thing right, and that was not throwing him out there to the Wolves day 1 because he wasn't ready. I remember pre-draft, some people thought he had the upside to be better than a Justin Herbert, but up until that point, they've sat in the last 3 years, let him develop. And every single time we've seen Jordan play, he's gotten a little bit better and better and better. From the game against Kansas City to those little moments, those couple of drives he pieced up against the Eagles. I'm higher on Love than most people because he has the arm talent and the athleticism. But there are a lot of questions with Green Bay defensively where Joe Barry's still a defensive coordinator. I think he's horrible. And then they need to add a slot receiver. I think Christian Watson can be special. I like Romeo Doubs, but they need that third receiver big time. You lose Robert Tonyan. So I don't think this is a great situation for him, at least yet. If they add in with the 15th pick, a really good receiver, then I start to look at this and say, okay, he's got the weapons. He's at least got a coach that's finished second in Coach of the Year and hopefully a decent defense to give him an opportunity to win games this year and win the division. But I'm tempering my expectations because it's not just Jordan Love I have questions and he see more from, but it's also LaFleur when he's not working with Aaron Rodgers.
Even Joe Barry being the defense coordinator that you think he is, which is not a very good one, Packers still were a top 15 defense. I can comfortably say that the Lions and Packers defensively, the Packers win that in the landslide. The Packers still have the best defense in the division. There's no doubt about it. They have the best.
Much, Joel. The Vikings, the Lions.
That isn't saying much.
And the Bears. The Bears and the Vikings are the two worst defenses, probably.
Okay, but we know, but we're comparing them to their division. So by far and away, they have the best defense. So that means Jordan Love will not have to be in shootouts the entire season, which is, I think, a huge plus. Joe Barry has moments where, yes, he doesn't scheme up the best game plans, but he also has moments where he's pretty good. And the offensive line, David Bakhtiari healthy, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, those are three pillars. I think Christian Watson has wide receiver one upside. You know the running game is going to be good with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I mean, if the Packers in the first round draft Zay Flowers and in the second round draft Darnell Washington, I mean, we're looking at this team very differently. And I think in this, like, they can definitely get a receiver in this draft that we could be like, yo, this is a good situation. I think it's a good situation now. They have to bolster up the receiving core. There's no doubt. Get a tight end to replace Robert Tonyan. There's no doubt. And maybe just Josiah DeGuara has a breakout. I'm not sure. But all I'm saying is that this is a good situation. And Jordan Love's over under for touchdowns, I think this year is 19.5. I'm smashing the goddamn over, Dehls.
Does the Packers
have?
I'm smashing it.
Joel, does the Packers have arguably the worst offense in the division?
Yes.
Is that not ideal?
You take them over the Bears? Or you take the Bears over them?
The Bears have a better offense. Rushing offense was unbelievable this past season, and they just got DJ Moore. So, yeah, no doubt. But I think that Jordan Love, outside Jared Goff is proven, Kirk Cousins is proven, but they're system quarterbacks. I think that Jordan Love not only is a good system quarterback, and he showed it. Like in Kansas City, this is a thing you want to see out of young quarterbacks. For example, Zach Wilson, when we saw him play, you know, it's not a lot of standing in the pocket and going through reads and making quick decisions. He holds on to the ball. He runs in circles. The pocket presence isn't there. There's a lot of nervousness that you feel. With Jordan Love, he went into KC at Arrowhead in his first start. Steve Spagnuolo blitzing the hell out of him, sending him exotic looks. And all Jordan Love did was not take sacks and make quick decisions. Was he inaccurate? Yes. But did he make the right decisions? Was he trying to take advantage of one-on-ones for Devontae Adams on the outside? He was. He was making quick and decisive decisions. One thing about Jordan Love in his limited time that he's played, you can tell that he's a quick decision maker. He doesn't take sacks, and he's confident and poised in the pocket. He doesn't run around and run in goddamn circles like other young quarterbacks. He's not that. He's very calm in the pocket, and that's why, to me, he projects as a good system quarterback, but then he also has the other things that you can't teach, like making plays, like getting out the pocket and making plays. Because there was some throws on film that, you know, he was very aggressive with. He made a big time throw against Kansas City, like across the field, that I don't even think Aaron Rodgers attempts at this stage in his career. So Jordan Love, man, let's put some respect on his name.
I gotta go back and watch that Kansas City game because I'm not remembered the same as you.
Like,
it was so long ago.
All 22, buddy. Come on, Dehls.
Yeah.
J Love, baby.
I respect you. You're going to bring out the positive moments from that game, but there was a lot of negative moments too.
Well, the negative moments is that he was inaccurate. That was negative. But the decision-making wasn't bad. The decision-making you like.
He had no reps with Devontae either. That was only receiver that week.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, man. Jordan Love, and he handled it pretty well.
It'd be pretty funny if this is the time the Packers finally break not drafting a wide receiver in the first round, and it's for fucking Jordan Love, not Aaron Rodgers.
And it's for Zay Flowers.
Is that what's going to happen? Is Brian Gutekunst going to finally break the trap? They also don't like taking receivers under 6 feet either. That's another trend. This draft class has a bunch of receivers mostly under 6 foot.
Quentin Johnson, maybe.
I think in the first round the Packers go.
Well, Christian Watson, he's like fucking 6'3".
Yeah, he's 6'4". Yeah, I have the Packers in the first round possibly taking Dalton Kincaid or Mayer, and then in the second round taking one of those receivers.
Kincaid would be a problem with Jordan Love. That would be awesome.
Or maybe they go Quentin Johnson and Christian Watson.
That'd be fun.
I like JSN a lot on this team, though, in the slot. He could just plug in immediately, and that would be a young quarterback stream.
They have what, middle of the first round? I don't know.
15.
15. Yeah, I mean, JSN could be there for sure.
Now, the next topic we're going to have was talking about Mac Jones and the Patriots shopping him, but multiple reports have come out and said that was not true. So we're just going to go straight into reviewing NFL win total lines. And this is interesting. This is the first time I'm doing this in the NFL season where I'm looking before the season starts at projected win totals and trying to see, what's the best bargain for me and what teams can possibly overachieve this season. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams. 6 teams right now that have plus 100 odds or better to go over their win total, which means that if you pick the over, you're going to, make more of a profit. So the Broncos at 8.5, the Bengals at 11.5, the Browns at 9.5, the Giants at 8.5. So Vegas is projecting the Giants to be an 8-win team or less this upcoming season. They don't believe in Daniel Jones and the miracle that was the Giants this past season.
They have a tough schedule too.
Yeah, the 49ers at 11.5. And the Cardinals, we were talking about them quite a bit, at 5.5 wins. So if they win 6 games, the Vegas is telling you bet against them winning 6 games, which I think is fair. From looking at this, Arizona, I'm not touching.
No. What was their total again?
5.5.
5.5.
Yeah.
I'm not taking plus 100 odds on them.
I'll take the under.
The 49ers 11.5, them to win 12 games. It kind of feels like, plus 100, 12 games.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
I love it.
Especially
if it's one team, the Niners, I'd do it. Yeah.
They can't be any worse at quarterback in terms of injuries this year.
But we don't know who's going to get quarterback.
I don't think it matters.
Say it again, John.
If it's Brock Purdy at quarterback, they're going to win games in the regular season. If it's Trey Lance, that defense is so good. Kyle Shanahan.
If it's Trey Lance, they're going to win games in the regular season too.
They lost to the Bears, but listen,
it was a fucking monsoon.
Yeah, for the Bears too.
Still lost to the Bears.
It was a monsoon for the Bears also. But Kyle Shanahan, you trust him, but I'm more confident in Brock winning games than Trey Lance because I've seen it. No disrespect to Trey Lance, he's more talented. That's obvious, but Brock has an NFC chip appearance. Trey Lance doesn't.
God.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I will be honest here. What's a harder situation? You're one of your first starts against the Bears in a monsoon, or at Arrowhead against Steve Spagnuolo,
against what was up to that point a bottom 5 defense in the league.
Now the monsoon is definitely
they
hard.
weren't. No. I would say facing the top defense in the league is harder. At Arrowhead,
they were terrible.
The Bears were terrible defensively, and Trey Lance was throwing nothing but
bro, it was a monsoon, bro. Like the rain literally was covering the field.
You couldn't even see the field in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was crazy.
What do you think, John?
Also week 1. No, to be fair, I mean Steve Spagnuolo against a rookie quarterback is a rough recipe for the Rook. But a monsoon in week 1 where there's no film, a weird week of preparation, I think it's pretty even here. They're both tough spots to play in.
Fucking John.
So Niners
are real Dehls, unlike your Celtics.
So Niners 12 wins. Are we taking that this year?
I like that.
I'll take that.
I like that. It's
sure I would.
You think the division with the Rams? Listen, I know Stafford wasn't great last season when he was healthy, but I think they'll be better than what they were last year at a minimum. Now, I don't think that's going to equate to 8-9 wins for them, but I think the division will be a little bit tougher. But it does feel like that's a conference that's Philly or San Fran and an outside shot to the Cowboys to lose. So when you're going through all those NFC teams, most of them, basically all of them are going to be worse than San Fran. And you got to, assume that you're not going to go through 3 quarterbacks this season. Hopefully, Purdy, Lance, whoever it is able to stay healthy.
I think the Niners could win 5 to 6 games in the division. Like I think they can sweep the Rams.
Yeah.
They'll sweep the Cardinals, and they'll probably split with Seattle, maybe.
They could go 6-0 though. Wouldn't surprise me.
It's like
No, they could. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. The Giants 9 wins, plus 100 odds. They're underdogs to get that, and I don't think I'd take that, man. I think I easily go the under on 8.5 wins. I don't think they win 9 games.
I think with the NFC East, we have one of the toughest schedules, all of our teams in the league. Then you look at the Giants. They didn't really bulk up at wide receiver like you might have wanted them to. They got a couple okay names, a couple number 3s, but still no true number 1. Darren Waller still has injury concerns. We don't know how many games he's going to play this year. If he does play, he'll be great. I know he will, but it's if he will play. Defensively, they're solid, but that offensive line still needs work. You still want to see Evan Neal take that big jump year 2. So I can see them probably getting flat at 9, but that schedule is so hard. I'd probably go the under.
8's a good line. They went 11 last year, right?
10?
9. They tied with the Commanders.
9. So they were 9-8 last year.
With an easy schedule.
Yeah, then I don't know why I thought they won 11.
They feel more like an 8-9 team to me this year than a 9-8 team or more or better.
Yeah, I agree.
They overachieved last year. We've mentioned it so many times on the podcast. And the schedule being tough this year. Last year, they'd won the easiest schedules. To start the year, we were talking about wait till they see Green Bay. That'll be the real test. Then Green Bay's kind of mid too, right? So everyone they played last year, not everyone, but most of the teams outside like Philly, it was a pretty easy matchup for them. And now you also have a year of film of Daniel Jones, Dable, this offense. Bringing in Waller's going to help for sure. But it feels like they could go under that total.
I agree. The Cleveland Browns. What are you going to say, John?
I would not go the over there because I do not trust Darren Waller to stay healthy.
Yeah. I can see a season where, Daniel Jones gets exposed. Darren Waller can't play the full season.
I don't think Daniel Jones is going to get exposed. I just don't think he's going to level up like Giants fans want him to.
He's peaked.
That's a harsh reality.
This is he'll be able to be accurate when there's not a lot of pressure in his face and there's open receivers, but I don't think he'll be able to get into that next tier of the Dax.
I just think the problem with the Giants is they were fiending for wide receiver help, and you still don't have it. So it's like
they can draft one still, but yeah, you don't have a guy you could count on right now.
Now you're relying on a rookie if you do draft to come in and be the number 1. So, it's a lot.
Now for the Cleveland Browns, 10 wins. Their line is at 9.5, so 10 wins is plus 100 odds for them.
Listen, Joel, I've been meaning to talk to you because I saw your little Deshaun Watson rant about how he wasn't good, and it was cute. You were right to a degree. He didn't play football for 2 years, but you didn't give him the benefit of the doubt, so it's fine, whatever. They got Deshaun Watson. If he's back to elite play, even if he's back to just being a top 10 quarterback, they got
that's elite play.
Yeah, no, but he used to be top 5, top 6, whatever. But he gets back to top 10. He has Nick Chubb. The defense is underrated. They got a lot of guys out there: Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Myles Garrett. David Njoku had a great year. Amari Cooper is still one of the most consistent receivers in the league. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore. Donovan Peoples-Jones, yeah, I know how I love Donovan Peoples-Jones as number 2.
He's better than Elijah Moore.
No, he is. Fact. But Elijah Moore, he can shock the world and be a really great number 2. I like Cleveland. I'll take the over. I really do like Cleveland as a team.
Are we assuming, Rip, do you think they'll still get it if Lamar leaves? If Lamar stays?
Yes.
So
but
regardless of the quarterback.
This is my assumption is Deshaun Watson is back. So if he's not back, I'm fucked.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter what the rest of the division.
Yeah. No. If Deshaun Watson's back, it's just the Bengals in them. I don't really care for anybody else.
If Lamar is with the Ravens, they have a chance.
I'm good. I like Cleveland.
The Browns became so pass heavy once Deshaun came back, which I understand. You give him $230 million. You want to see what he has. But also, that running the ball with Nick Chubb was working. It's worked for years, even when you had Baker Mayfield kind of game managing things and got you to the playoffs in your first playoff win, as Joel mentions, in the last 20 years. But I do worry a little bit. Stefanski's been a great coach up to this point. He won Coach of the Year a couple of seasons ago, offensive mind. I like him a lot. But I do worry a bit that he's going to try to prove to the rest of the league that they didn't make a mistake with Deshaun Watson and try to throw the ball 40-plus times when You have Nick Chubb, who's one of the best running backs in the game, and you should probably be leaning on him a bit more if we're comparing to what happened at the end of last season. So I think a lot of this relies on kind of offensive philosophy, because I'm obviously not an old school guy, run the ball 25 times with Nick Chubb and, you just have a quarterback to figure out the rest. But I do think there has to be some balance there, especially with Deshaun's gotten his feet wet, right? Played 5-6 games or whatever, but he still has to get more in-game reps for Deshaun Watson to be Deshaun Watson again. And I hope until that point they rely on Nick Chubb some more and not just throw Deshaun Watson out there when there's been some bad weather and there was some freezing cold games. And they're just like, fuck it, we're going to throw the ball 45 times. So I hope Stefanski's a bit more balanced this upcoming season. Got to hope the defense steps it up as well. The AFC's tough. The AFC North is tough. I would be taking the under. It was 9.5, right?
Yeah,
10.
so 10
I would
wins.
be taking 9 or less wins for the Browns.
This may be the toughest division in football, but Deshaun Watson doesn't need to get back to his elite level for the Browns to win this division, because Baker Mayfield in 2020 had a great season, but he was not an elite quarterback throughout the entirety of the year.
But the Bengals
didn't have Joe Burrow.
But that's the thing.
Ravens
This
are right
Browns
there.
secondary with Martin Emerson, he was great last year. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, you add in Juan Thornhill, and then you really bolster up the interior defensive line. You, maybe most importantly, you move on from Joe Woods, you bring in Jim Schwartz. This defense, especially up front, it can't get worse. And so when you look at what Nick Chubb can do as runner of the football, I don't think Stefanski's going to go all out with the pass. Last year was really just trying to get Deshaun as much passing reps as possible, given he missed 11 games. The offensive line will be crisp. You have a good receiving core, but it's the secondary here. It's the best secondary in the AFC North far and away with Denzel Ward. And I really think Emerson's supremely underrated. He's a big-time player. And I think defensively with Dalvin Tomlinson, Agbanya Okoronkwo, I mean, Javian Clowney was not very good, not a good culture piece. This Browns defense will level up. And offensively, with the second year of continuity, after missing 27 games, Deshaun won't be worse. So I'm going with the Browns over here.
I'm almost with you, John. I just the whole Deshaun doesn't need to be elite part losing me, but I'm with you with everything else.
You need Deshaun to be elite to win that division.
I don't know.
So would you rather bet on, because these are both plus 100 odds, would you rather bet on the Bengals winning 12 games or the Browns winning 10?
I would take my chances with the Bengals.
Wait, Bengals winning 12?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's their schedule?
I don't have it like directly in front of me.
Is it like middle of the pack?
It's probably going to be the same schedule as with the Browns.
I remember looking a couple episodes ago, and the NFC East and AFC East had the hardest schedule. So that's the top 8, basically.
Okay. Yeah. So Bengals winning 12 or that's
I went back. Deshaun actually didn't throw as much as I remember. There's only 2 games of 30+ attempts.
I'm taking the Browns, man. Fuck the Bengals.
I respect it. Fuck the Bengals for sure.
Yeah, I probably still take the Bengals, man. You know, Joe Burrow is going to own that division for as long as Kenny Pickett's the Steelers quarterback, probably like 2-3 years max.
He almost lost to Tyler Huntley in the playoffs.
He did.
And the Steelers almost won the division the last 2 years. I would go with the Browns over.
The Steelers always almost do something.
Didn't almost win the division.
The Steelers always almost do something.
Yeah,
that was
Ben Roethlisberger.
That was in Riv.
That
was in Riv. Over under.
Was year after 11. I know you love to throw that season at me. That would be the Jets' best season. That 11-win season. That 11 games. That's more games
like Joel said
in any of the last 12 years.
Last football episode, we had the same amount of AFC Championship appearances in the last.
Yeah, since
when's the last time the Jets made the playoffs, Dehls? Because if memory serves,
2010.
When's the last time you guys went to the AFC Championship?
Oh, the longest drought. Okay, that's good now.
Congrats on being a first-round exit against the Cleveland Browns and Baker
Mayfield. My team is relevant.
Let's go Steelers.
I'll take relevancy.
So good.
Hey, listen, that was in Riv. You know, over under Kenny Pickett is a Steelers quarterback 3.5 years.
3.5.
Under.
The thing with the Steelers is they love their guys. So like once they have someone, even if they're just mid as fuck, they'll keep with him.
They also don't lose enough games to go get a quarterback.
Exactly. So I think they'll have Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
The Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos. Zach Wilson will last longer in New York.
He's almost out the league. He might go to the Rocks League. I think he should go there.
Now, Denver Broncos plus 100 odds, 8.5 is their line. 9 wins. Are you willing to bet on that for the Broncos?
Man,
I'm not a fan of Denver, man.
Sean Payton fixes a lot. Sean Payton can fix a lot for you. They brought in pieces for the offensive line. They're keeping their receivers. Javonte apparently might not be ready for week 1, so I don't really know who they're starting at running back.
The receivers are mid.
Samaje Perine.
Did they sign Perine?
Yeah.
I think Sean Payne could get you 9 wins.
I think so too.
I think Sean Payne gets you 9. I don't know if he gets you 10, but I think he gets you 9.
Alternate spread 10.
I don't know if 10 is possible. That's a division.
Russell
the only team I
Wilson
feel
was
comfortable
so
is the Raiders. I think are going to be last comfortably, but I feel like the Chargers and Chiefs are also pretty comfortably first and second.
It really depends on what Kellen Moore does for the Chargers. But I could easily see the Broncos winning more games than Los Angeles.
Yeah, what was it? 8? You said 8 wins?
Not 9 wins.
8.5.
I'll sit at 9. I'm gonna go flat. I'll sit at 9.
Yeah.
We saw this last season. Coaching matters, and in 2021, Sean Payne won 9 games with the worst quarterback play in the NFC. And now you add in what they have in the offensive line. Running back's a question, but in today's NFL, you take one in the 3rd round, you'll be fine. Defensively, I think they'll be a little bit more healthy with Justin Simmons, and they'll get 9.
Am I the only one that thinks for Denver wide receiver is a question?
Not if they're healthy, I don't think so. Judy, Sutton, Patrick, I think they're fine.
Yeah, they just seem so regular to me.
I will say though that
accurate.
worst case scenario, Jared Stidham starts. Worst case scenario.
That won't happen.
That is terrible.
You gotta respect Russell Wilson.
Jared Stidham had a good game against the Niners. Respect
They
him.
made him $10 million, but
He played
Wilson's
well.
Hall of Famer. So
He played well. Respect him,
Zach Wilson's
Dehls.
had good games.
you gotta respect Russell Wilson, my friend.
Jared Stidham's game against the Niners might have cleared anything Zach Wilson is.
You're not wrong. You're starting Stidham over Russell Wilson. God.
It depends on how Russell plays, but granted, how many games the Broncos lost where if they would have scored 16 or more points, they win. I think that I'm comfortable taking 9 wins for them. I am. I'm gonna bet on them this year. I don't think they're a pretender. But that's gonna do it for this episode of Pick Aside Podcast, episode 269. Next episode will be NBA. We'll be doing our NBA awards, all NBA honors, and we are hoping to have Pierre Pee Wee to plug Pick Aside P on that episode. It will be on Friday. Make sure you guys mark your calendars because we'll be here live again. So
what's on Friday?
6. Yeah. Reading some super chats. Q Bugavelli. Arizona should use the year like the Bears. Pick and money.
Oh, like last year where they just didn't do anything?
Yeah. Street saying John a Brandon Ingram fan. Is
John,
that true, John?
Is this true, John?
No. Shout out to Burner Hoops, but no.
Q Bugavelli. If Arizona was going defensive coach Flores was the move.
There was some hype around Flores getting that job too. But it didn't work out.
And now this is from Cole Larson. Jordan Love will throw no more than 20 touchdowns.
How do you feel about that?
We need a small.
Before we go, tell me Jordan Love's stat line for next year.
24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
4K?
3,500.
Okay, calm.
3,500.
Have you not moved by that?
3,500.
200 yards a game.
Or 3,800. Love, baby. Jordan.
You need Jordan Love to pop because Zach was a complete and utter failure.
Well, Jordan Love will pop. He's gonna be good.
We heard this. I'm gonna stay out of it. Not gonna start it.
We heard Trey Lance out of you, buddy.
Yeah, no,
Trey Lance doesn't play.
That's the problem, Dehls. That's the problem.
Trey Lance, we just don't know if he's good or not.
That's the problem.
It's better than knowing he's not good, right?
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
The known versus the unknown.
Exactly.
So you guys can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Pick Aside Podcast and on Twitter at Pick Aside Pod. We'll see you guys next time.